Good evening. I call to order the Lake Havasu City Council regular meeting on Tuesday, April 9th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. If you would please stand and rise, we're going to do a moment of silence in honor of former Councilmember Dean Barlow, who passed away, and then we'll have the invocation. Thank you. We'll now have an invocation from Chaplain B. Evans with KNLB Christian Radio, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Suzanne Dilio and Judy Long, Quilts of Valor.
Good evening. Sweet Heavenly Father, we are just so grateful, Father, that we walk into your throne room anytime we want to and anytime you want us to. Father, we thank you for this evening, and we thank you for our council members. We know, Father, that they love this city, and we know, Father, they love it like you love it, unconditionally. Easy to say, not so easy to do, but they do, Father. And I just pray, Father, that they know that they can ask for wisdom because your word says they can, and if they do, they get it. You're so gracious to us. But most of all, Father, the thing that you tell us that we don't have to ever forget is that you will always be with us, that you will never leave us or forsake us. So I know tonight, Father, you're here with our city council, with all those who are going to present, and we give you all the praise and the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hello. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome. If you'd like to share a little bit about your organization with us.
Hi, we're with Quilts of Valor, Suzanne and I. We have about 12 ladies in our group, and what we do is we make quilts for our veterans. And the theme is Quilts Equal Healing. And so far, as of next week, it'll be over 60 local veterans that we have given quilts to. And it's just a passion, and it's something that we really enjoy. We do have brochures out front if you want more information. We do need more nominees if you know of anybody. So we've got our email on the brochures. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. The next item is our roll call. Ms. Williams, if you roll.
Members Nancy Campbell.
Here.
Michelle Lynn.
Here.
Jenny Koch.
Here.
Jim Dolan.
Present.
David Lane.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cameron Moses.
Here.
Mayor Cal Sheehy.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Would any of the council members like to remove any of the items for separate discussion?
Mayor,
Yeah, Councilmember Koch,
motion.
please.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch, a second from Councilmember Lane. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 6 is correspondence, communications, petitions, announcements, and the city manager report. We'll start with item 6.1, which is announced vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. Ms. Williams?
Mayor and City Council, there are several vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. The following is a listing of those vacancies. Board of Adjustment, 1 regular member, 2 alternate members, and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, 1 student member. Anyone interested can pick up a packet at City Hall, and they are also available on the city's website at lhcaz.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.2 is the city manager's report. Good evening, Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. As our moment of silence reflected, tonight we're honoring Councilmember Dean Barlow. We're deeply saddened by the passing of former Councilmember Dean Barlow. Dean was a beacon of dedication, fiscal prudence, and unwavering commitment to our community. Dean unfortunately passed away on Friday, March 29th. leaving behind a legacy of service and compassion. He cared very much for this community. He dedicated his time and his passion as a city council member and as members of the Sunrise Rotary Club, Keep Havasu Beautiful, Lake Havasu Historical Society and Museum, and the Western Arizona Humane Society, to name just a few. Dean served as 2 terms on city council from 2008 to 2016, and he played a pivotal role in navigating our city through the challenges of the economic downturn and spearheading projects like the city sewer initiative. So we are very, very thankful for his service. And with that, Mayor, I know we want to recognize Councilmember Barlow's wife.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Knudsen. I had the honor of serving with Councilmember Barlow for 2 years, as did Councilmember Lynn and Councilmember Koch a little bit longer than that. When we think about Councilmember Barlow, he embodied everything that was Havasu. Havasu was his home, and he gave of his time, his efforts, and his energies to make our community better, brighter, and stronger. We're all better because of Councilmember Barlow's service to Lake Havasu City and his service to projects throughout our community. We're so honored to have Bridget with us, Dean's wife, and some friends with us to honor Councilmember Barlow. And we want to give you a small token of our appreciation. So I'll come around. Thank you again for joining us, Bridget, and for sharing your great love with Lake Havasu City. Yeah. I'm sorry, but if you can go on the microphone just so folks at home can hear. Yes.
For the record, it was never me that called during city council meetings. Because I was at home watching the city council meetings, and then we would go to Taco Tuesday. So I only called once, and it was the last meeting just to make Mark Nixon laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, for those that don't know, Councilmember Barlow was notorious for not turning off his cell phone, and his cell phone would always go off very, very loudly during council meetings. So, yeah, and with his wicked sense of humor, that is perfect for this evening to show a little bit of his character with us. So, thank you again. Back to you, Mr. Knudsen.
Thank you, Mayor. On March 25th, Fire Chief Pete Palafis, as well as our City Attorney Kelly Gary, Deputy Chief Jason Stello, and Battalion Chief Tim Maple, attended a Certificate of Necessity, or CON, hearing in Phoenix. The purpose of their attendance was to further the city's position as we seek to obtain a CON from our proposed emergency medical transport program. At the hearing, Chief Palafis presented a compelling case, highlighting the importance and benefits of issuing the city a CON to provide emergency medical transport service to our residents. Through a collaborative effort with River Medical, the administrative judge will submit a decision to the Director of Health Services this month, with the city's CON possibly being issued in the next 60 to 90 days. So very exciting. Thank you, Chief, for all you've done for this effort. Lake Havasu City was once again named a 2023 Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation. Thanks to Parks Director Mike Keene, Craig Geary, and their team, and Guy Reynolds, they achieved this status year after year by meeting the program's 4 components: maintaining a board or department, having a tree care ordinance, dedicating an annual budget, and hosting an Arbor Day observance and proclamation. In 2023, our Parks Department teamed up with Keep Havasu Beautiful and students from Lake Havasu High School under the leadership of the Lake Havasu Association of Realtors at the island to plant more trees. We're very proud of the crews and the positive effects their care in planting trees has provided for our residents for now and well into the future. The city celebrated our Vietnam veterans at our annual Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Cookout event on Vietnam Veterans Day. About 200 people attended the event, with some traveling here from other areas such as Kingman and Fort Mojave. The event was both moving and inspirational. Special thanks to our sponsors, which include the Elks Lodge 2399, Burgers by the Bridge, Starbucks on Lake Havasu Avenue, the Campbell family, and Smith's Grocery Store. The committee that organizes the event is made up of a group of individuals from the city and various organizations that include American Legion Post 81, Daughters of the American Revolution, Disabled American Veterans Chapter 27, Elks Lodge 2399, Friends of the Fair Rodeo Grounds, Lake Havasu Veteran Center, Marine Corps League 757, of course our military moms, Mojave Military Museum, Radio Central, the Veterans Resource Team, VFW Post 9401, as well as VFW Post 9401 Auxiliary, and the Vietnam Veterans of America. And special thanks to Jerry Bracamonte for bringing everybody together in celebration of our veterans. The Marine Corps League Detachment 757 held an event on Saturday morning. The annual ceremony is a tribute to local members of the Marine Corps League and Auxiliary who have passed away the previous year. Mayor Sheehy and Councilmember David Lane, you both attended and represented the city. The organization is an all-volunteer program with a consistent membership of about 160 veterans from all branches of the armed forces. They do not charge a fee for their services to the community, but they do accept donations, and money raised are used to pay it forward. The detachment's color guard can be seen throughout the community at various events, providing meaningful military ceremonial presentations, such as the Vietnam Veterans Day Ceremony, 9/11 Rededication Ceremony, American Legion Car Show, Gold Star Mother Ceremony, Havasu Memorial Walkway Ceremonies, Memorial Day, and Toys for Tots, to name just a few. We obviously appreciate the Marine Corps League, and we thank them for their service to the community. Construction companies are encouraged to take advantage of an offering to save on water costs for their projects. Our city wastewater treatment plants offer free non-potable water or grade A+ effluent water. Normally, if purchased, water costs $2.51 per cubic foot from the hydrant, but it is available for free for all contractors from the Island Treatment Plant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and at the North Regional and Mulberry Treatment Plants Monday through Friday from 5:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. To schedule your free water pickup, simply contact 855-3999, and our staff will guide you through that process. And finally, the Supervisor Excellence Academy, class of 2024, continues to prep the new site of the Havasu Water Smart Demonstration Garden with signage and additional plants and landscaping materials. The garden, located on the corner of Spazano Way and McCulloch Boulevard, serves as a valuable resource for individuals, businesses, and commercial developers seeking to create beautiful desert landscapes on their own properties while responsibly managing their water usage. On completion, the class invites the community to their ribbon cutting and dedication ceremony that will be scheduled for Earth Day, which is April 22nd, and that ribbon cutting will take place at 10 a.m. Special thanks to our local donors who helped make it possible, including a Rock Yard Havasu Enterprises, Desert Land Group, Gold Star Engraving, Home Depot, Keep Havasu Beautiful, Lowe's, Star Nursery, and Southside Signs. With that, Mayor and Council, that concludes my presentation for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Knudsen. All right, move on to item 7, which is our public hearings. 7.1 is introduced ordinance number 24-1330, declaring the document entitled 2024 Amendments to the Lake Havasu City Code Title IV, Water and Wastewater Regulations, April 23rd, 2024, a public record, and adopting by reference water and wastewater regulations and penalties, including service, billing, connection, charges, hydrant meters, private fire protection services, and backflow prevention, and repealing Lake Havasu City Code chapters 8.05 and 8.20 and sections 11.04.280 and 11.04.290 to amend and consolidate all water and wastewater regulations into Title IV. Mr. Kellett.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I believe the introduction is actually longer than my PowerPoint, but I'm still very pleased to be here for my first time in front of Council. So let us go over this introductory item, the update to the water and wastewater regulations. First, just a little bit of history. Going back and looking at regulations that have been adopted from the IID, the Irrigation Drainage District, up into the sewer expansion program, various changes have been made, notably in 1994 with the adoption of backflow devices, in 2008 incorporating all the new what we called sewer regulations, but wastewater regulations, And then the last change that was really of note and shown in city code is in 2013 for the update to the water and wastewater regulations based on organizational changes within the city. So it has been quite a while since a real good, thorough overview of the regulations has been accomplished. And so staff set forth on a process to go through the regulations and make sure they met with the current guidelines or the current standards, and incorporated with or worked with Jacobs Engineering to provide a complete overview of our existing water and wastewater regulations and make sure they all meet what the standards are. We also took some effort to determine what best practices were also done within the state and other cities and what they were doing to make sure we're kind of all in line with what's being expected. They also went through a process of conducting interviews with individuals within each department: public works, which would be engineering and operations, administrative services, and developmental services, so that everybody's kind of in the same page and understanding what these are, what we're getting into, and what changes we can be seeing in the future. Something that key changes are listed here, but the overall comment on this one is that they're mostly editorial. The majority of changes are things like just making sure that the right name is being used in the right spot. It's referencing the right code. So that's what the majority of the changes are. But some key changes to highlight at this particular point are that the regulations now are very clear about what the use of the water and wastewater system can and cannot do. Regulations on what can go into the wastewater system are much more clear. Penalties for those are also much more clear, as well as what the water system is intended to do and what its uses are. So it's just more clearly spelled out than previous versions. Bigger changes in the use of hydrant meters. We are being much more proactive in the use of hydrant meters, and now staff will actually be going out and reading the hydrant meters. Previously, they were self-reported. Now we'll be taking that back, and it will be something done by the city staff. Application for service is another key area where it was really just making sure that it lined up with current administrative practice, so that the things we already were doing now line up with what the regulations say. And the last thing that's kind of on a little bit of a bigger, more cleanup item is the appeals process. It makes sure to let the citizens know what the appeals process for any decision would be, and knowing that the final decision does rest within the city manager's office for any appeal process. All of those are clearly spelled out within these proposed regulations. The next steps for this particular process is here: introduce it, get council feedback, review, comments. We will be coming back to you at the next council meeting on April 23rd, seeking adoption of these. And if it is adopted at the April 23rd meeting, they will become effective 30 days after that. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kellett, and welcome to your first presentation in front of the council.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the council? Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. One of the questions I've requested in the past is track changes. You're the expert here. I can open up the code and go back and forth, but again, I have a philosophy that's moving forward. That means if this becomes a full-time job for me, you guys need to work harder. I mean, it's really hard to go through this whole documentation and try and interpret everything and what the changes are, but can you explain why there wasn't tracks or track changes on this particular?
On this particular one?
Yeah, is it really?
I don't actually have a very good answer for that, because the track changes version, I think because it's being incorporated as a completely new title, is why it's a new title being brought in, and we're just taking out the two old parts of the chapters in 8 and 11.
Yeah, so this is a completely new code section. So Ms. Gary emailed this to us, I believe, 2 weeks ago or so for review because of the length of it.
Mhm.
But because of the expiration of the irrigation and drainage district, which is where most of these guidelines resided, when we repealed that, the IDD as a district, we had different code sections across different sections of city code. So this is a completely new code section.
I'm aware of that, and I did reach out to Mrs. Gary as well in regards to what are the biggest changes that the citizens might be affected by. So I'm going to just go to one question. Tell me a little bit more about the hydrant meters. What's the difference as a contractor? We have our own meters. We hook them up wherever we need, and we write a check. What is going to be the different process moving forward?
The different process will include that the city staff will now be the installation. So the contractor will say where they want it. City staff is required to put it in, and that city staff is required to read that monthly.
I can see some hardship there. I'm just explaining that because a lot of times just planning these jobs, they get moved quite quickly. I'm doing a job right now that has changed the slab date 3 or 4 times. And so when we are constantly having to move back a day that we're going to be grading a lot here or there. And I just don't understand how much work that's going to put on the staff. So I'm very concerned about what that looks like. And if you've went out and actually talked to the industry to ask them how that looks and what is that going to do? Is it going to just prolong more jobs because of the constant moving of construction and project managing? I'm a pretty good planner, but it ever changes every day. And when that we have to sprinkle a lot, it really depends on what time of day, what contractor didn't show up, who did, there's a lot of dust and there's a lot of moving parts here. And that's one big question that I did see through this document that change did kind of concern me. So
Yeah, that is why it was highlighted in the presentation, is a substantial change to the contractors. There is a time specific for the amount of time Public Works has to actually put that meter in. And they can sit for up to 6 months with no use. It's at 6 months with no use that they would be picked up by the city.
Mr. Knutson, did you have a comment on this?
Yeah, if I can, Mayor, Councilmember Campbell, present company excluded. We have run into some issues over the last couple of years where we had meters that were on the construction site that weren't returned to the city. So that means not only were you losing out on the meter itself, but all the water that was sold through the meter, the city was not compensated for that, and to very sizable amounts. So that's the reason why we need to take a more proactive approach in terms of the installation, monitoring of the meters to make sure that the water that's used is paid for and goes back into the system. So that's one of the things that we're trying to react to, and this is the best approach that we can come up with. So
Mr. Knutson, operationally then, so are they installing a meter at, if they need to run a sprinkler or something to soften the soil, they schedule that and they go out and install a meter there? Or is this one meter for one company? How operationally does that work?
Yeah, so like a contractor, construction team or otherwise would take a meter issued by the city and then use it for to cut down on dust, or otherwise used for their construction projects. And then the concept there is then when you're completed, you turn the meter back into the city. The city reads the meter, and then the contractor then pays the city for the water that's used. We ran into issues again where that meter wasn't being turned into the city, so there's a loss in terms of that meter, but more so to a sizable extent. Tens of thousands of dollars of where water was not being paid back to the city. We're now reaching out and collecting those meters and one at a time, but it's a huge effort. And so we want to make sure that we're tracking this to a much greater degree.
Mayor, I'm really confused by this because I know that we have several meters that are identified and Campbell's name is on it. I'm only speaking so clearly about this because this is my job. They're identified as they're owned by the city, they're tracked, they're numbered, and it is our staff's due diligence to report to you on a regular basis or we have huge consequences. So now I'm just kind of confused, like now the ones that are the good players in the game, I don't even understand how somebody would have allowed a meter to go out and then it just disappears. I'm just confused by that. I'm listening to you and I just wanted to know where the problem was and why we're trying to fix something that I don't see to be a problem at all. I know how big the water bills are that we write to the city on a regular basis for these hydrants, but we come into so many different last minute changes and what we use it for is dust control. So I hate to get to the point that we are up against the wall on a contract or that is timed and we're making the decision to just start grading because we're not going to lose revenues or lose the project or push somebody else back because of some accounting issues on, I guess, the bad players in this community. We will be grading those lots and you will lose the water consumption because you won't have it. And number two, you will disturb the neighborhood, and it's against law. It's against the ADAQ for us to create that much dust on property. But this happens sometimes in the middle of the night. You'll have a breakage on a city street, and we get called down a lot to assist. And I guess we'll be using more water trucks, I suppose. But I think this is a bad direction. I apologize that the city is losing millions of thousands of dollars in water, but I think that maybe we need to tighten up the way we do it. Maybe that's all.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the council on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan.
just a question. So are we talking about the actual meters that go on the hydrants themselves or meters that they have installed at individual lots to do work?
To be clear, this is the meter that you would see on a fire hydrant up above. So it's a temporary meter that is usually issued for construction purposes, dust mitigation, whatever else is going on, typically speaking. So that's where this is an above ground meter you would see driving around town.
Right now, they physically attach them and take them with them, but now we're
That is correct.
What happens if construction company A has it attached to that meter, to that fire extinguisher, that fire thing, and then the hydrant and somebody, can you only have one on at a time? It's just, I don't know, it seems kind
Yes, you would only have one on at a time. And under this proposal, if it needed to be moved, like another company was coming to use the exact same hydrant, under this proposal, Public Works would have to go remove meter A and put on meter B.
It does seem like a little crazy that, maybe we do have some bad players in the past and maybe we need to be a little more due diligent and maybe charge more deposits on those meters, but it seems efficiently not a very good system maybe with what we're incorporating now. I'd like maybe update that because that just doesn't seem very efficient having grown up doing construction too. It just seems, I understand we have the problem with we're not being paid for the water, but maybe we can track them a little bit better and have a system where because it seems like the best to me is that it is mobile. That person has it, they're responsible for it. And if they're not charging them, then we take them back and they put a pump in their pool or something if they need to. Just my thoughts.
Mayor?
Yeah, no, I agree with Councilmember Dolan as well. I mean, I think that if we had a mobile thing, if we have a way that someone checks it out, pays a deposit, we can still bill it monthly, whether they come in or however you want to do that, but we can figure that out. Yeah, Councilmember Campbell?
Maybe and I don't know, I'm not an expert in meters, but is there a smart technology? We're talking about a lot of meters that we're changing over within the city that are smart technology. Obviously, that would cost the contractor even more, but I think the long run, it's going to cost the contractor way more. I know that we get phone calls when there's a breakage and they just hook on and they'll have to hose down a street because it's full of mud from a breakage. And I just can't imagine calling a city worker in the middle of the night to hook up a hydrant. So is there a smart technology for temporary meters?
That size, I would have to research that to give you. I know a smaller meter, yeah, but something that's going to go on a 6-inch line coming out of a hydrant, I'd have to research that to make sure. And you are correct. If it does exist, it would be substantially more than the current technology. But possible is a different question than probable.
I can't imagine what this is going to cost for our staff and administration and hiring somebody just to be contacting the city on a regular basis on when they can be there and on both sides.
Mhm.
Both sides. Thank you.
Are there questions on other topics within this code section that we're considering this evening? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Yeah, please just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name's Emiliano Torres. I'm a homeowner and a taxpayer. Behind me, I have a fire hydrant that occasionally contractors come and use. They use it and then they leave. If I'm hearing this correctly, and if this becomes a cumbersome issue, that fire hydrant that is occasionally used by contractors could be the focal point for those contractors because it's a hassle to move it. They'll just set up the hydrant, their meter there, and then I'm going to have to deal with the big equipment parking next to my house regularly because it's cumbersome to move the meter. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to address the city council on this item?
So Murray, good evening. I think Councilman Campbell's correct. You got to take a look at this thing all over again. Nobody ties onto a 6-inch hydrant. You're tying onto 2.5. But with that, you could have some process in place where if I don't return the meter, I pay the full price to the meter. Okay, it's signed out to me. It gets a number, and if I don't bring it back to you, I eat the meter as a contractor. If there's a charge of water, then the contractor needs to know. If you don't come back with the meter, here's a base charge we're going to get you. We'll charge you $10,000 for the water you used, even if you didn't use it all. But this going this way of having somebody go out and change meters is, I guess, for a better lack of words, moronic. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, Mr.
If
Knudsen.
Again, just to be clear here, we're not talking about the cost of the meter. That's something that is very insignificant. But if a meter is not returned on time and goes on is used for several years, the first meter that we identified that was in question was $80,000 in water usage. The second one exceeded over $100,000. So that's what we're talking about in terms of trying to make sure that we're better stewards of the water that's used within the community. It sounds like there's a direction for staff to take a closer look at this, see if there's options. Maybe there's some technology that we can utilize to put us in a better situation to make sure we're capturing the water usage as well as making it efficient for the contractors.
Thank you. All right. Would anyone else like to address the city council during the public hearing? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Councilmember Dolan, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to see us maybe bring this part back by next week, just to kind of, like I said, I mean, it sounds like, without blaming staff, we just have to be a little more proactive, and we need some sort of system where if they're not turning, if they have a deposit and they didn't give us their water meter reading for that month, then it auto bills a certain amount, or, because the players that, and I think we're talking about, like a lot of construction companies, but we're talking about the pest controls and things like that. And if it's, I think we can definitely work with them and get a system where it works. And we having those meters, I'd like to buy one of those that allow $80,000 to go without the city calling me and asking me where my check is. So,
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that what we have in front of us is an introduction. So if we introduce this item with the feedback that has been given, I think that there can be something determined between deposits and operational concerns to make sure we get billing. I mean, I get a bill every month at my house. I know my meter doesn't move, but we can put in some sort of a program where if you get one of these meters, that they have to come in on whatever the billing cycle is, and with a period to get a reading and get their bill. I think that we can make those changes to this. That item would then be track changed because now we have a document we're referencing, and then we can have the discussion in the public hearing on April 23rd and adopt it if we're comfortable with those changes and it addresses the concerns we talked about tonight, or take different action if that's not there. So with that, if there's not any other comments, I'd entertain a motion. Yeah, Councilmember Dolan,
I'd like to make a motion.
please.
I move to introduce ordinance number 24-1330, declaring the document entitled 2024 Amendments to the Lake Havasu City Code, Title 4, Water and Wastewater Regulations, April 23rd, 2024, a public record, and adopting by reference water and wastewater regulations and penalties, and repealing Lake Havasu City Code chapters 8.05 and 8.20 and sections 11.04.280 and 11.04.290 to amend and consolidate all water and wastewater regulations into Title 4.
I'll second, but that'll include the changes we just talked about, correct?
Yes.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan, a second from Councilmember Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Yeah, so I see a couple of blanks there. So I think this is an introduction. So the staff took the feedback that we just had. So the next one will come back. We'll have track changes on from this document we have in front of us with the changes that we just talked about with hydrant meters for our consideration. If that meets our requirements and this council on April 23rd adopts it, it'll go into effect 30 days from the date of adoption. If we don't like the changes, they don't meet what the spirit of the conversation we just had, then the council takes different action, gives additional feedback to staff, and does not take the action to adopt it, which means it wouldn't go into effect 30 days from April 23rd, is what the motion we have on the table right now.
So, Mayor?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Councilmember Lynn?
why are we just not tabling it then?
I don't understand why we're even introducing it if we're just giving them direction to go and change it.
Well, that's what you do in an introduction is we look at the titles that we have. I mean, this is a document that is, what, 40, 50 pages?
51 pages.
51 pages long. So if there's no concerns on the rest, it's bringing in a whole new code section to address water, wastewater regulations, bringing the code section up to date. We're comfortable with everything but one page based on the conversation that we just had as a council. Staff took our recommendation. They'll bring it back with track changes. If they figured it out or we will have different word changes at that time, we say that and we move forward and either adopt it or don't. But that would be an action that we have on April 23rd.
So Mayor, you
Councilmember
are
Campbell.
saying that we are going to get the track changes. I know it's a completely different document. I don't expect to be perfect, but there should be, though, just the track changes just on this one.
Correct. Yeah. So this is the brand
Well,
new
then I
document
have
that
a
never
hard time
existed before. So
probably.
this never existed. There's nothing to track changes on when this document never existed. However, based on the feedback that we just gave, these 51 pages will now have track changes to the hydrant meter section on April 23rd when we meet, and then we will be able to see if we like those words or not.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, our next item is item 7.2 is adopt ordinance number 24-1329, approving an amended general development plan and plan development rezone for plan development number 00-07 Heat Hotel, 1420 McCulloch Boulevard North, adjacent to the Bridgewater Channel, and a mixed-use neighborhood plan development district to permit the conversion of the outdoor bar and patio and the upper bridge retail suites into 8 new guest room suites. Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'll be handling this from the desk for the next 3 items because there's multiple presentations that I'm going to be switching in and out, so I apologize for that. Let me advance this here. Okay. The property is located on the south side of London Bridge Road on the west side of the channel and includes a parcel that is directly under the bridge. And I'll get to more on that later. The property is zoned mixed-use neighborhood with a planned development overlay. All the principal and accessory uses currently operating at the Heat Hotel are permitted in this district. The applicant is requesting to amend the approved PD plan for the Heat Hotel to convert the little-used outdoor bar and patio area to additional hotel rooms. Required parking for the entire development, including the Javelina Canteen and the condominium units, which are reflected on this overall drawing, is provided entirely on site. Overflow, if needed, is available on the west side of the development in the city parking lot. And I do want to stress that we've calculated. Sorry about that. We've calculated all their parking requirements for the entire site, and they are under, or I'm sorry, they are just slightly over what's required to serve all the uses there. Now, showing this area, if you look at the shaded gray in the upper middle, there's the patio area. Seems to be turning off, strangely. So if you look in the shaded gray area, I'm going to advance it one slide here. That's what that area is right there, the raised bar patio area. I'm going to advance it one more slide to kind of give you a sense where this.
Yeah, no, I think the batteries, you want to maybe grab that.
So this next slide right here, what that reflects is the existing Heat Hotel lower level. You can kind of see the channel on the left side of the picture. The upper area above those units is the bar patio area that was in this previous shot right here. So this is what they want to add an additional 6 units to right here. Now, if I go back to the original slide, There's also the 2 units that are underneath the bridge. And, oh, I'm sorry. With the 6 units I just showed you, that takes the Heat Hotel from their existing 29 total up to a total of 35 units. Now, by adding they're asking for 8, which includes the 2 under the bridge, and that would take them up to a total of 37 units. And that is this slide right here. So these were originally intended as commercial units. They sit directly under the right-of-way for the London Bridge. You can see the arch of the bridge above it, the channels to the right, and that gives the details on that. So let me advance to one more slide. The parking calculations, I believe, are included in your packets as well. I required the applicant to submit to show that there is indeed enough parking on their site to serve their uses. The Planning Commission, I'm sorry, let me advance this one more slide. The Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously with conditions that the applicant shall complete a sewer lift station capacity study for the current facility. The cost of any improvements to that sewer lift station identified by the study are to be borne by the owner. All roof runoff from the new development, including the upstairs bar deck and all surface runoff, cannot directly connect to the Bridgewater channel. And finally, the development conducted on the site shall be in substantial compliance with the general development plan at all times. Minor changes necessary to meet the utility company or city public works department engineering requirements shall not be considered as substantial changes. Mr. Mayor, the applicant is here. I'm sorry, the applicant is represented by Ivan from Selberg, and he is present in the audience. That completes my analysis of the staff report, and I turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Would the applicant like to make a presentation or make any comments?
Hi there, my name's Ivan Betancourt from Selberg Associates Architecture Firm. Not too much else to add to Chris Gilbert's presentation there, but I'm here for any questions if there's any.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bendecourt. So so we're talking about new units, 8 total new units. So I'm assuming that's the 100 proof retail store on the what that would be the south side of the lower area.
Correct.
The area on top of where the bar's at now. And then is it 2 units are being proposed in the old coffee shop underneath the bridge?
That's correct.
Okay. And so previously, in subsequent hearings over the years, the Planning and Zoning Commission has considered and denied that request for underneath the London Bridge component of it. And I don't love it myself, converting that over to hotel suites just because of the historic and iconic nature of the bridge to our community. But can you talk a little bit why that particular piece? I mean, I can understand the other ones, but the piece right underneath the bridge.
So I believe that particular existing building has been vacant for a good part of 6 to 8 months, and really the developer is just looking to make use of it. And we weren't aware of any previous denials, but I mean we understand if there's any other conditions that we would need to to be under for this to be approved.
Were there any other considerations discussed for that particular area?
Only what Chris mentioned as far as looking at the providing an analysis of the lift station, since restrooms I think calculate for more sewer capacity than say a commercial use would somehow. But other than that, and any stormwater requirements, there hasn't been any other conditions of approval.
Thank you. Are there other questions from members of council? Councilmember Campbell?
Mayor, yes, I have a question. That building bothers me too, because as I had to go to the county assessors to look a little bit tighter at who owned all the parcels. It was a little difficult, but I did my job. There's 25 feet on each side that's still owned by the city. So it's literally that building. It's the right of way for public access. These pictures here really don't show, and then they just gave us something that was updated, and it's just the building out here. But if you really go to the actual parcel, you'll see that between here and here, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this was a nice little rabbit hole that I got to dive around in and try and figure out what's going on here. And if I, oh, there, thank you for the picture. If I understand correctly, that parcel is only the parcel. I believe it was 47 by 20 that is owned by whoever you represent. So everything on the outside of it, the 20 feet to one side, 25 feet to the other side, is actually city right away. Is this correct?
Mr. Gilbert?
Thank you. Oh, no.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. There's just not working, I guess. Yes, that is correct. I will admit, as a professional planner, I've been doing this since the 1990s. This is one of the weirdest setups I've ever seen for a property under a right-of-way. But yes, it is a privately owned piece that is surrounded entirely by right-of-way. That is correct.
And then again, can I continue with my questions? Then again, I owned liquor licenses. This is a hotel room. Most of the hotel rooms have a liquor license that is within the building itself, like your hotel expands all upon your property line. I don't really ever see a liquor license that goes, or like if they want to deliver food there or whichever, gaps in between. Now, I understand right-of-ways are between two buildings. Good example, you can be at Javelina Cantina. You're going to walk across the right-of-way, which is the street in the park, to get to another restaurant. That's fine. But legally, you cannot be bringing alcohol, beverages. It just makes me feel like they were fortunate to get this one piece, and they're going to get everything else around it that's going to be the taxpayer's responsibility. So if I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong, because again, this job has been a full-time job for me lately because of things like this. I'm really diving into and trying to pull out for the citizens on what is actually happening here. And I'm seeing this correctly then?
That it's right of way around the building. That's correct.
So if you have furniture outside this, because it's only this building, or are you going to shrink the size of your hotel? Are you taking that building and making a hotel within that footprint?
There were some early concepts that showed like kind of a courtesy rail, little fenced area, or coming off of the building about 5 feet. But we can forego that. If that helps. And we would just leave it contained to just the building. Just the rooms within the building.
So am I voting on both of these things at one time?
We're still having a discussion. So,
okay,
yeah,
but
let's hear from our other colleagues on the council.
Okay,
and
just wanted to know, is it all blank? Is it one? Yeah.
It depends how the motion is made. So
Okay.
yeah, there's options for the council to consider. Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan.
I guess that was my question for the city attorney. So is this, being that it is a change to the plan development and they're submitting it this way, is it an up or down on this plan with 8 units, or can we make a motion that says we're okay with the 6 units and not the 2 units, or does it have to come back to the city? If there's, because like I said, right now, I don't like the 2 under the bridge, and I would be definitely a no on that. But if could I make a motion at that point to approve the 6 but not the 2, or do they have to totally resubmit at that?
You can make a motion to exclude or include what you feel is appropriate. I'm not sure if that will work for what they're doing, and they may have to come back, but you can certainly make the motion.
Okay, that's good enough. Thank you.
Councilmember Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've actually brought up what I was going to bring up. Is we recently did a resolution about access to shoreline on the island, and this channel is part of that shoreline. And my concern would be if they put a room here, you have people, tourists, other people constantly walking by 2 people's hotel rooms under the bridge, and that the owners would then want to try to restrict the access under the bridge for the walkway there, which we can't have that. That's why we did the resolution. So, but I think we've answered that question. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lane. Additional questions?
Yeah, I mean,
Mayor Moses.
I'm curious how this even happened in the first place. It is really weird. Do we have any history of why this little piece under this side of the bridge was partialed off, or does anybody have any history on that? I know I'm probably Like, good luck, right? That was probably written on a bar napkin back in the 70s or something.
Yeah. So a little bit of history of the areas underneath the bridge. On both sides, the mainland side and the island side, has always been under private holdings until VRE dedicated the area on the east side or the mainland side to the city during a zoning use action several years ago. But it was always on both sides of the channel. This area, they have right of ways and the appropriate things, but as far as the land ownership has always been. Now, for this building to be built under there, maybe Mr. Gilbert has some history.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The best that we could tell in our research is it all goes back to Ordinance 00592, passed on June 27, 2000, that approved the original development plan for the Heat Hotel. And that was these two were two of the original commercial units that were included with several others. I think there was like 9 commercial units that were over time eaten away and turned into residential units due to, according to some of the discussions I've had with the applicants team, is that they've been underutilized over the years, and so they've been converting them into guest rooms. So my guess is that in 2000, these were thought of as a good idea to attract guests and tourists and customers to the community, to have a couple of commercial buildings under the bridge. It's a very strange setup. I don't believe in my career I've ever seen anything like it, as I said earlier. So it is unique, and that's the best we can tell how it came to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's really weird. But at the same time, it was approved and it's allowed. So if these are hotel rooms, David, to your point that you're making, if that picture is a little bit wider to the left, there's hotel rooms right there. I'm sorry, there's hotel rooms right there. There's another 6 units down below. And so there. And so I have a tough time saying, no, you can do this commercial use, but not this commercial use. I mean, what's the difference between a coffee shop and another hotel room? I mean, I don't like it. I don't like either one of them, but at the same time, I don't like moving goalposts, and I don't like saying, okay, well, now you can't do anything in these kind of deals. So I'm torn on that part of it. I'm very torn on it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Moses.
Mayor, just
Yeah,
one last
Councilmember
comment
Campbell,
on
yes.
that. I did jump down that rabbit hole all the way to the investment accounts that the investment company that actually sold it to the Heat back in the day. And I know that the intention was for public use to do actual shops or gift shops to assist to get more foot traffic down there. It was never intended to be for private use, is what I understand. Obviously, they didn't write in the code properly. I'm not sure how it all was written up. I didn't read through all that as well. It's a pretty big agenda today. So anyways, that's my concern. I personally would love to keep it, I think, with what they intended on doing, which was to put coffee shop, candy shop, public use. So then the public would walk up to it, open the door, and then they're in a private, and you can ensure that that owner then owns that building, and they're responsible for the insurance and so on. So I think you guys know which direction I'm going with this, and I understand it's commercial, but I know that what the intent used to be because I did the history.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
Just to
Councilmember Dolan.
clarify too, I mean, it is a planned development. This is why we have that. If they didn't build it exactly the way they were going to build it when it was approved as a planned development, to come back and change the planned development has to come back in front of us so we can catch stuff like this. So, we do have that ability, being that we are changing.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Koch?
Do we know, does the applicant dead set on this? If we were to approve the other 6 and not these 2, is that going to be a deciding factor on whether they do or don't move forward with the entire project?
It doesn't answer the question very well, but they were looking at these 2 units as a phase 1 of the entire development.
Okay, and then probably a question for staff. I can't really see wanting to go to a hotel and wanting to stay in that particular location, but the only way that maybe it might seem, it wouldn't even really seem, it just seems odd, but nonetheless, do they have any area outside of the building to make an outdoor common space, or even to put a railing up like the applicant was suggesting? Is that even an option for them?
Yeah, behind you. Yeah, Mr. Miller, I think. Yes. Yeah, Mr. Miller, if you could come up to the microphone, please.
Maybe I can answer some of your questions. Yeah, it's strange. It really is. And we bought the hotel in 2004. Small hotels are really hard to manage. When we took it over, there was 15 hotel rooms and a lot of vacant space. And granted, it was 2004. Times were pretty good. 2008, most of our tenants left. This was Kelly's Coffee. It was a coffee and a hot fudge place. Really, to make it, you need to be a Starbucks. We talked to them. We'd love for them to be our tenant. And that's not where they want to be. They want a drive-through, and they want thousands of people every day. So the way I understand it is that we do own this piece of property, and we have a right of way that people can walk around it to the stairs, but we still insure all of that concrete. We maintain all of that. So would I wish it was something different? Yes. Do I have the ability to change it? Does it sound like, from what I'm hearing from you, that I do have that ability? But I had someone that wanted to put a liquor store in there. I had someone that wanted to put a hamburger shop in there. There's never been a denial on this piece of property for new development. But when they went to talk to the health department did not want greasy oil being shot up into the bridge. So it really limits what we can do there. Now, we have more demand for hotel rooms than we have rooms. So we've been holding that space for it's been vacant for 7 years. 7 years. And I've had two people. I had a guy want to put a tattoo parlor in there. That's not something I want on my property, no offense, but we try to maintain a pretty quiet place. This would be phase one. It's the easiest one for us to do. We finally said, okay, let's convert it. We can't do anything here. Let's convert it to hotel rooms. And that's where that came about. The second phase would be the rooms above. And back in the day, the bar was very busy, but it's also very loud. And when you have hotel rooms surrounding it, I get complaints from hotel guests saying, hey, can you turn the music off at 10 o'clock? And we make more money on hotel rooms than we do on the bar. So for us, it's just the next thing. We need more rooms. There's height limits on our property where we can't go any higher, but this piece right here allows it to happen. But we really tried to work with Ivan, work with the city, and do what's right. I don't know who wants the space. It doesn't have the traffic. There was a little more traffic when the casino had people picking up there, and that's gone. But even our neighbors, the cafe, and they wish they had more foot traffic as well. But for us, I think the most quiet, the cleanest for the bridge is rooms. We do have a right of way in two of the suites that are right next to it. We haven't had an issue. And we're not limiting people's access. In fact, we're opening access because we still have the fountain and we still have the docks and everything else. So we really are trying to open access to visitors. We want them to come in. In the financial world today, the 2 rooms are pretty easy to get done. We can do that on our own. To add the 6 new, I don't think in this lending environment we'll be able to get that done until maybe next year if rates do come down. If they don't, they may never get built. But the phase one is why we're here. We need more rooms. And we do pay TOT taxes, which the city benefits from. And that goes right directly to you, not sales tax. It goes right into the city. And we're proud of that. We for a little tiny hotel, one of the smallest in Havasu, we have great reviews, and we try to do the right thing every day. So thank you. I'm open for any questions. Do you have anything for me?
Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about the right of way? So does the right of way at this building go right up to the door, or would there be furniture or a railing?
Can you go back to the one you have there? So can I approach this?
Yeah,
a lot?
please.
Okay.
Yeah, you actually need to be on a microphone though, if you're going to say words. So if you
I'll
point
do
to
it
then
from
come
here. I'll
back.
do it
Yeah.
from here. If you can see that suite right there that has the windows there's a diagonal cut where the right of way extends to the water. So when we originally did these rooms, we had patio furniture out there, but because we were in the right of way, we pulled the furniture out. And it's been many years. To this day, we don't have furniture. We found that a uncovered 110-degree day, the patios just don't get used. We have great air conditioners in these rooms, by the way, because these were all commercial spaces, and we left those 2-ton units in there, so they work really good. So it's really cold. But that's the public right of way, and I don't believe. I can't remember. You may know a little better than me, but I believe that the public right of way extends to the front of the hotel, the proposed 2 new rooms, not to the side of it. I think we have a little bit of a buffer on that.
Mr. Gilbert, do you know that on the right of way, or maybe Mr. Tuneman is making his way up front? He may have the answer for us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so what there is basically if you look at the seawall and come 20 feet towards the hotel, there's a 20-foot pedestrian access, they call it. And so it's 20 feet wide that runs from the seawall 20 feet over, all along the seawall, all the way underneath the bridge. Okay. And it runs in front of the condos to the south. And so it connects basically the city boardwalk, call it, in front of the condos, and it'll take you all the way over under the bridge and then until you hit, we'll call it the Chagru property.
Okay.
So that's the access easement that's there.
And then, so on the side of it where the current doors are to this building, the easement's not there. So they have the ability to have flexibility on what they would like to do.
Correct.
Okay.
And so this is a pedestrian access way. And then there's an overall, over this piece, there's an overall London Bridge right of way as well.
Okay.
So you have that that encompasses the bridge itself, and then you have the pedestrian access way that's basically perpendicular to that. That makes sense.
Great. Are there any other questions? Councilmember Campbell?
Mayor, when I looked at the parcels and literally clicked on who owned what, the little square box in the middle that was 47 by 20-ish, give or take, was owned by the Heat. Everything else around it, am I correct, was part of the Lake Havasu easement right away.
Yeah, so it's the right of way is overlaid over private property. So the hotel does own the property, but we have a right of way over the top of the property. So the city does not own the property. It's just a right of way over private property. Just like a utility easement on private property, very similar to that. Right. The stairs are within that right of way. Yes. Yeah, there's a couple different parcels there, but if we're talking about just that specific building, then yes.
Parcel Unit 10 is owned by the Heat, that box that you see there.
Yes. Yes.
So the whole property
This is the
right
final
that goes on top of it.
I think what you're referring to is there's a final plat for this area, and Unit 10 is the final footprint for that plat, but the overall property extends beyond the building.
Yes.
Of Unit 10.
Yes, but the actual parcel plat is that building.
Yeah. Right. May I approach the dais?
Yes.
And
do you have a microphone to talk to? You can. Yeah, you can use.
Unless you can.
Jerry, do you have the handheld?
Yeah, Mr. Chinman, come on up. We'll get you a microphone as you described.
I think you clarified that you said the easement is no different than a public utility easement that somebody would have in their backyard, and their property plot line is actually that building. If I'm understanding the way I understand things, but
so if you see Unit 10 here,
yeah,
that's the building, but their property actually is all of that, and that's just the building footprint.
But that's the city's right away, though.
Yes.
No different than a utility right away.
If you look at the
I can't build in a utility right away unless I get a variance.
Unless you get encroached.
That's what we're trying to say here.
Correct.
I thought I understood.
Yes, thank you.
There are other questions about, actually, after having this conversation, I feel more comfortable about having hotel rooms than I do a greasy burger stand now. So I'm glad we've had this conversation. And it makes more sense to me with the way the right of way is, and you have flexibility as an operator on where the current doors are. I mean, who knows what that would look like otherwise. In that area, you have pedestrian access. I mean, pedestrians do use that from the Island Fashion Mall all the way down to the dog park and beyond. Um, and the building footprint isn't changing from what we're talking about. So again, I'm glad we had the conversation because I feel a lot more comfortable about this use than I did at the beginning of the hearing. So, are there other questions or comments before we open the public hearing? And Mr. Miller missed one important part. He also is not only paying insurance, he's also paying property taxes for this property on the whole. So as well, which we appreciate. All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter?
Mr. Mayor, we did have someone sign up.
Yeah, thank you for that. As the reminder, yeah, we do have Mr. Albreca. Albra, sorry about that. Yeah, welcome.
Council members, my name is Kenneth Albrecht. I live at 1420 McCulloch Boulevard North. I'm the owner of residential unit 101 at the Southgate condominiums. The homeowners are unanimously opposed to the addition of 8 hotel suite units being requested by the Heat Hotel. 6 of the new units are prohibited without unanimous approval of all condominium units as set forth in the Condominium Declaration and Arizona's Condominium Act. New units would add more hotel guests to an already limited common area and would detract from privacy and lifestyle of the owners in the residential units and negatively affect home values. I'd like to present a copy of the March 22nd letter to Brett Miller, including the Condominium Declaration page and the page of the Condominium Act that Mr. Miller has ignored, if I may.
Are you done with your comments?
Not yet.
Okay, finish your comments and then you can get that over to us.
Okay, thank you. I'd also like to present a copy of the signed protest letter, and I would request that the demand letter to Brett Miller and the protest letter be made part of the record for the hearing.
Excellent. Yeah. So you, Ms. Williams will take those documents from you. And is that your comments now?
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you. Is it my understanding that your condo association has their own parking behind a fenced area so parking is not a concern of yours? It's just, what's the concern? Why are you against it?
Parking is a concern. There's few elements. It's one, it gets rid of the common element that is part of the bridge. So it's a bar area that has an element to come down for the boat parades, for the Christmas parades, to look at to view the bridge and have that element as part of friends, families, guests, community citizens come down and sit at the bar and watch the Christmas parades and all the events that hold down there. We're having Desert Storm next week. If it's nothing but doors, hotel rooms in that commercial area, which has slowly been converted over to doors, it takes away from that community element to come down and be a part of the bridge, be a part of the swim. The swim starts from that area, cross a bridge, turn on the lights, what have you. You can go there, and I know that staff has looked at the parking considerations there. You can go there any night of the week and take a look at the parking. And in the 47 spots that are there, if you take a look at what do I do with 10 trucks and 10 trailers, they all park on state trust land next to the property. They park on city property out in the parking lot. So they're not parking in the parking lot that is intended to be. They're parking in somebody else's space. Trash has been a constant issue. Without an expansion of the trash, there's just not enough room for it. And so they've tried different temporary trash containments that have been outside, not within a containment area, leaking oils all over the concrete down into the residential area, and possible storm drain contamination. So that's been an ongoing issue for a decade. And these are the concerns of the residents and the citizens.
Thank you.
We have unanimously opposed the project. We like the common element that we bought into the community for, that we're a part of the community to come down and be a part of the bridge, watch the events.
Thank you for that clarification. And your association is the 5 condo units just directly south of the hotel.
And we're all part of the same development. It's the Southgate condominiums, but there are 5 individual resident units.
Yeah, thank you.
So, excuse me, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Moses?
So are you saying that that bar is part of your common area for the condos? That's in your contracts and your deeds? Like I'm confused
Well,
about how,
it's part of the common area of the association.
because it's a business. Like I don't understand how a business could be a part of
Well,
your
it's
common area.
not part of the business, but it's part of the development. It's part of the planned development. The planned development was for the hotel rooms, the commercial element, as well as the residential units, which also include 1 residential above the garages that are within the parking area behind the gate. I just don't see a good picture of it.
Yeah, no, I think we understand. So yeah, we're here to talk about the plan development. So in the current plan development, that's the case. If this were to change,
And the planned development was for the commercial units, not doors. I mean, the applicant purchased the property with 15 hotel rooms. Okay, now he wants 35 or 37, and completely eliminate the commercial aspect of the property. We're walking up to Javelina Hotel. We're walking over to the Chagruz property or Mackay's or what have you. So it really takes away a lot of that outdoor element that you experience with that we all experience at different resorts.
thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. If you can just give your documents to Ms. Williams, and we'll file them for the record. Yeah, thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this item?
Council Mayor David Diaz, Chairman of the Plan and Zoning Commission. I wanted to just to verify.
Mr. Diaz, as chair, are you speaking as chairman? We already have your recommendation, so we can't take comments as a chairman, but as a private citizen.
As a private citizen.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The presentation that was just given, I was speaking to some people, and we don't remember that 2 rooms being part of our. When we said we that was voted on 7-0 by the Plan and Zoning Commission. We remember the 6 rooms that we discussed, and there was a pretty deep conversation about it, but we're not clear of that.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
Yeah, Mr. Diaz, yeah.
Excuse me, Mayor. I don't think that this is inappropriate. Unless your comments are as a private citizen, not as member of the board.
Yeah, you can't give us a recap of the
Okay,
meeting.
I understand. I'll talk later. We'll
Okay,
talk
yeah, thank you.
off record.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Would anyone else like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion, additional questions, or a possible motion.
Mayor,
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell?
I have concerns about the legality if there's a protest. Again, I've learned all about protests now. If they have a protest that 100% of their residents, what does this look like? Is this legal to be doing what we're doing, or should we have further discussion on what that looks like? Because I was not aware of a protest. Nothing in this documentation that I received had anything to do with a protest.
You saw it live, happened just a minute ago. So
Well, I thought that they had to be filed prior to any board.
There's no
decision.
protest. This is a vote of
Is it
from their board or their members saying that.
So they didn't file a legal protest with the city clerk's office. Is this correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do. I am.
Has something been filed in the city clerk's office? No.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions, comments, or possible motion?
I'll make a comment. I'm okay with amending the plan development for the 6 rooms on the site. I can't be the person that allows hotel rooms underneath the London Bridge. That building, I wouldn't have approved that back in the day. I don't know. I just have a hard time with that being under the London Bridge. So since Unless somebody else wants to make a motion, I will make a motion. Not really sure how to word it, but I'd like to have it where we approve the 6. But
Yeah, do you have a comment, Mr. Miller? Yeah, we have to get you on microphone.
Councilmember Dolan, what would you like to see under there?
I don't know. There's a level of commercial I hate seeing stripped away, and I understand that's a hard area to have commercial in the first place. But I just, it's just it's a little weird. Just 2 hotel rooms right underneath the London Bridge. It's and
Well, if nobody ever stays in those rooms because it's weird, nothing changes. It's just a bad business investment on my part. If 2 people or 4 people decide to stay in those rooms, I don't think it affects the city either. Nor does it affect the glorious London Bridge, which we happen to love. I could put a liquor store in there. It's licensed for it. Just do it. I don't know if that's the best thing either. So I think I should be given the choice. Is it permitted what we want to do? It is a commercial use. A hotel is a commercial use. Same as a tattoo parlor, same as anything. So if it's permitted, I think you need to, whether it's weird or not, there's lots of weirdness. See, there's lots of things that doesn't make sense to me. But businesses thrive and businesses go out of business. A hot fudge shop underneath the London Bridge in July does not do a lot of business. And that's when everybody's here. There's not a lot of people here in November, December, and January when that would thrive. But we're just trying to take a uninhabited, closed business and bring a little bit of life into it. And it actually will look better than a closed up shop, which has been that way for a long time. I'm all ears if there's something that you think would be a home run and we can get it done and passed. I'd love to hear about that too. Thank you.
to answer your question, in 2000 I wouldn't have approved a building underneath the bridge in the first place. I would have kept it a stage or a community event or something like that. I wouldn't even have had anything under the bridge in the first place. The fact that it is commercial, I mean, you do have that ability to do, and I understand your situation. It's definitely a rock and a hard place, but for us to come back and for me to to approve it to be to hotel rooms, that's just not something that I.
No, I didn't get it planned. I bought it that way, and I bought it with the conditions that we have, and we've more than doubled, tripled what we were paying in TOT taxes. So hotel rooms do work, and we are a visitor location. That's what Havasu's great about. I started coming here in college in 1988, and when I had the opportunity to be on the water here, I grabbed it. So I've been here for a long time, 18 years. So, but yeah, and we on our side, we see the demand for the hotel rooms. We think it's the best use for that there. The least obtrusive to the bridge. And then Mr. Albrecht's, talking about parking and things, that everything we put in is less parking required than what was there before. There used to be a surf shop there. In fact, we operated the surf shop for 2 years, and it would make money for 5 months, and then for the other 7, we just hold on to be empty. But the number, that was 40 people a day come in to visit that, and now it's 4 hotel rooms, which is only 4 cars. So that's why the parking is actually getting better and better. Javelina Cantina, they're thriving. They're doing great. We're super proud of them. They run a great business. They're part of our team, and we're really proud of them. I'm also the president of the Homeowners Association. We had a community meeting prior to going to Planning Commission, and one tenant showed up, and they proposed us changing the PUD to add more docks. And we'd already done that. And we were trying not to bring in anything that might slow down the approval of these hotel rooms. All the homeowners call me on my cell phone. This is the first time I've really heard, other than it's a weird thing. We have residential and we have commercial. On commercial items, commercial side votes. On residential sides, residential votes. I vote on both sides because I'm a resident as well. I own a condo as well, part of that. So I vote on both sides. On the commercial side, only the people that own their condos on the commercial side, because they're all condos. That little coffee shop is a condo. You could sell that as a condo. The hotel rooms below the bar, those are individual condos, and that's how it originally was proposed. Was they were going to sell those units as a business condominium, and it didn't work. I mean, so I don't want to take too much time, but I'm here again if there's any questions for you. But I hope that we can get this approved, get it open. It's a little bit of a catch-all area. There's all kinds of weirdness happening down there now. Right now, there's a golf cart that's locked up that hasn't moved in probably a year, and we're like, who owns this? We keep it clean. We're not. I can't badmouth myself, but there is weirdness happening down there. People are going behind that. We can't see behind that building, and when there's not traffic there, or a hotel guest saying, "Hey, there's somebody around the back of my building," it's not getting caught every time. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Yeah, based on that, Mr. Dolan, if we could talk just a little bit about property rights and what that might look like. Ms. Gary, could you potentially give some?
Mayor and Council, I think this might be a good time to remind you that you can adjourn into an executive session for legal advice if you feel that that would be necessary. I'm not comfortable giving legal advice sitting here about this item, particularly about property rights. But if we'd like to discuss that further, you have the option to adjourn into executive session.
Mayor, when Councilwoman Campbell mentioned some of those things about protests and stuff, I had legal questions, and so
Motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn to a special counsel to get legal advice.
All right. So for those of you in the room and watching, give us just a couple of minutes. We'll meet with our attorney, answer the questions. A second.
I'll second.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Lane. And we'll adjourn back in just a moment. Back, if we could get a motion to reconvene.
Yes.
Motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Lane. We are now reconvening back in the matter of item 7.2, which is adopting ordinance number 24-1329, approving an amended general plan development and plan development rezone for plan development 0007, Heat Hotel at 1420 McCulloch Boulevard North, adjacent to the Bridgewater Channel, in a mixed-use neighborhood plan development district to permit the conversion of an outdoor bar and patio and the underbridge retail suites into 8 new guest rooms. We are now we've already opened the public hearing in this item, and now we'll just have council discussion. Are there questions or comments from members of the council for Mr. Gilbert or Councilmember Lane?
If I may, I just want to make some comments. And I've been pretty quiet listening to what everybody's had to say, but I have some concerns, and the concerns are on both sides. One, we heard from a condo owner who said that 100% of the people that own condos are opposed to this. But then we hear from the owner of the hotel portion that says he's a condo owner. Obviously, he's not against it, so it's not 100%. Also, in our packet, we saw that there was a public hearing, and none of the condo owners came and expressed the concern, other than they wanted access to the docks. On the other side, the issue I have is the location of where this building is. We hear from the developer that there's a golf cart that's been parked there and nobody knows who it belongs to. It's just been chained up there and it's been left. That causes me some concern due to the fact that these 2 hotel rooms, the portion, whatever it becomes, that's underneath the bridge, I agree with Councilmember Dolan. I would have never approved it back then, but that doesn't matter. It was done. security wise. It's separated from the rest of the hotel. How are they going to maintain the security around there if they're not able to do that now with just things that are parked on the property? So I have concerns with this plan development being changed from both sides of the issue. So that's where I'm at. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lane. Any additional comments or questions from members of the council? Entertain a motion from a member of the council on this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan.
I'm still in the same situation, so unless somebody wants to make a suggested motion on the original, I have an amended one I'd like to make.
Would anyone like to make a motion of the suggested motion that was presented in our council communication? This item is coming before us. It did have a public hearing on March 6, 2024 in front of our Planning and Zoning Commission. It's coming forward with a vote of 7-0 from the Planning and Zoning Commission. If we don't have a member of council wanting to make a motion of the suggested motion, I will turn it over to Vice Mayor Moses. Okay.
I motion.
Please.
I move to adopt an ordinance number 24-1329, approving an amended general development plan with the conditions contained in the ordinance and a plan development rezone for plan development number 00-07 Heat Hotel located at 1420 McCulloch Boulevard North.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Moses and a second from Vice Mayor Moses and a second from Councilmember Koch. Is there any additional discussion? Should this, just as a moment of procedure, should this item fail, then we can entertain an alternate motion if that's the will of the council. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion fails 4-3.
Thank you. Would the council like to consider an alternative motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan.
I'll make an amended motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 24-1329, approving an amended general development plan with the conditions contained in the ordinance and plan development rezone for plan development number 00-07 Heat Hotel located at 1420 McCulloch Boulevard North, limiting to the 6 units minus the 2 units under the bridge. That's okay with legal and how I explained it.
Ms. Gary, is that, yes. Yeah. Is that, will that be suitable for the record of what
Was
we're
there a second?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we don't have a second.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Dolan, a second from Councilmember Campbell.
If I understand it correctly, it's a motion that's just approving everything except the 2 units under the bridge. Okay, yep, that's fine.
That's workable. All right, we do have a motion from Councilmember Dolan and a second from Councilmember Campbell. Councilmember, thank you. And we're ready. Is there any additional discussion? All right, we're ready to vote.
Should we ask if the applicant even wants this?
We have the item in front of us, and all right, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 7.3, which is approve cellular tower land lease agreement with TowerCom XIB LLC for a new cellular communication site to be located at 1867 Walnut Drive. Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got to get something cleared off my screen here. IT keeps trying to restart. Ah. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we can move on to item 7.5, which I don't think needs a presentation. If Mr. Basquette, are you going to need a presentation? Oh, okay, perfect. So we'll move on to item 7.5, and then we'll come back to item 7.3 and 4. So we'll talk about item 7.5, which is approve a cooperative purchase agreement with Dell Marketing LP and the cooperative purchases for general computer equipment, peripherals, and related services, and cooperative purchase of a network server expansion from Sterling Computers Corporation. For those at home, we're actually have our computers are rebooting, and so we're going to move on to an item that we don't need to have a computer. So, Mr. Basquette, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I'm sure I can get blamed for this later as well.
Glad you're here.
All right. So the IT division, we're seeking approval to expand the city's server environment. That server environment was initially implemented in April of 2021. So it's been in place for 3 years, and we haven't come back to you guys until now to ask to expand that environment. It currently hosts more than 140 servers in the city, which continue to consume storage resources. And there's additional requests for over the next year to add additional systems as well. That's going to continue that growth as we move on. So based on that, the total cost of the server expansion is $119,337.84. It was included in the 23-24 general fund budget. I'd be happy to discuss further or ask any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Basquette. Is there any questions from members of the council on this item? And again, we are on item 7.5 for those council members that are coming back in from the other room. Seeing none from the council, we'll go ahead and open this public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for any questions, comments, or possible motion.
Mayor?
Vice Mayor Moses?
Yeah, I move to approve and authorize the city manager to execute the cooperative purchase agreement with Dell Marketing LP, approve expenditures for general computer equipment, peripherals, and related services in excess of $50,000 annually, authorizing city staff to exercise the option to renew for 36 additional months, and approve the purchase of a server infrastructure for $119,337.84 from Sterling Computers Corporation.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Moses, a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any additional discussion?
I probably should have read it slower to give him more time.
But we have other items in front of us. We're good. We're good. All right, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Chief, are you going to need a presentation? No presentation. All right. So we're going to move on to item 7.6, approve the cooperative purchase of two 2024 Leader Type 1 4-wheel drive ambulances mounted on 2023 Ford 550 4x4 diesel chassis from Professional Sales and Service LC through the Houston-Galveston Area Council. Chief Palafis.
So, Honorable Mayor, council members, before you is the approval of two ambulances. City Manager Knutson advised of our certificate of necessity. I just want to elaborate. Further news is that our attorney filed the facts of finding and conclusion of law to the administrative judge. So the next step is, like the city manager said, is sitting in the director's hand, which we are predicting sooner than later, the approval of our CON, which is a great historical moment for Lake Havasu City to be able to partner up with River Medical and provide additional services. And this was part of our budget request and was pending our CON. Now that we're moving forward and getting to the finish line, we are very fortunate to work with the cooperative agreement and work with professional sales services to get these ambulances and capture them now and having the available chassis because the delivery date is roughly August, September of this year. If we didn't purchase this or get this approved, ambulance build outs are roughly between 24 and 36 months. So based on my team and being persistent, working with vendors is being able to get these ambulances for the services for our community. So I'm asking you for the approval of $831,494.06 for the purchases of two F-550 ambulances that will be here in the city in roughly of August, September of 2024. And this is part of our medical transport program. So if you have any questions, I appreciate, be more than happy to answer it, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. So if this is approved this evening, how many ambulance rigs or vehicles would that have for our entire fleet?
So our entire fleet, right as we stand, we have three right now. Our oldest one is a 2008. So we will have a total of 5 ambulances. I'll be coming back to you next meeting to purchase one more ambulance for our fleet, and that's for a reserve. So we will have 3 new ambulances and then our 2 reserves that we purchased used. So we'll have a total of 5. What we're going to utilize our 2008 is the cot that was donated. We're removing that cot and putting it into the new ambulance to save some funding and getting rid of that 2008.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Are there questions from members of the council? Yeah, Councilmember Lane?
Thank you. Good job, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. But I do have a question. What if we don't get the CON? Why would we need ambulances?
That's a very good question. I am confident based on everything that's moving forward that we are 99.9% sure that we will get this certificate of necessity. It's sitting in the directors. It was not contested at the hearing. Our hearing lasted less than 2 hours. We provided the essential information that we have a public necessity, that we're fit and proper, and that we have the support of the council to provide this service to our residents.
Mayor?
Just to follow up on that question, I asked the question in preparation of this agenda, and just in case that 0.1% is there, the chief had told me that the market for ambulance resale is really strong, and we would recoup any investment that we're making. So, yeah, did I steal your thunder, Councilmember Campbell?
No, I
my
was just
attention.
worried.
Okay.
Was he going to donate them to Mexico?
Yeah.
Remember that conversation? No, that's the question I was going to say too. I'm sure he could resell this and probably make us a profit, but we are crossing our fingers that does not happen, and we have ambulance service for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from members of the council?
I had a question.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Moses?
I mean, so 6, we think we're going to need 6 total transport vehicles. Where do we get that number?
So the thing is, it's going to be 5. So the thing is, we are getting rid of the 2008 next agenda, next meeting. The thing is, we have per our CON is 2 ambulances full time, and then we have an in-demand ambulance. So that's possibly having 3 rigs up and running at any time. So we're going to have 2 reserves. So we have PMs, preventative maintenances that need to be done on this, and the 2 reserves are 2011s. So the thing is, just to make sure that we have adequate ambulances, and for special events that we basically have that demand. And if we need to put further in-demand ambulances up, say if we get a rash of calls or meet our or beyond our resources, we could put these additional ambulances up for our citizens.
Yeah, when you talk about the reserve vehicles, I guess it does make more sense.
Yep.
That you need that many. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Any additional questions before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor?
Councilmember Koch,
Motion?
please.
I move to approve the cooperative purchase of 2 2024-liter Type 1 4-wheel drive ambulances mounted on 2023 Ford 550 4x4 diesel chassis from Professional Sales and Service LC, utilizing the HGAC contract in the amount of $831,494.06. Authorize the city manager to execute the cooperative purchase agreement and authorize city staff to exercise the option to renew the agreement for 3 additional 1-year terms.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch, a second from Vice Mayor Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Gilbert, you're back with us? All right, so we are going to go back in the agenda to item 7.3, and it's approve cellular tower land lease agreement with TowerCom XIB LLC for new cellular communication site to be located at 1867 Walnut Drive. Mr. Gilbert.
Good, this is working. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My apologies on that. Apparently, you can only skip that one time, and then it doesn't let you the second time. So on that forced reset. But we're back, and this particular tower, I'm going to go over some of the slides that were shown to Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did approve the conditional use permit for the physical location of the tower, and I'll go into a little more information on the agreement as well. So start with the area map. The property is located on the south side of the Mulberry Wastewater Treatment Facility, which you can see on the overhead there. Let me advance to, oops, that was my mistake there. Hold on. Advance to the zoning map. The property is zoned R1, single family residential, which is actually pretty typical of the larger properties that are publicly owned throughout the city, whether it be schools or, for example, the wastewater treatment facility here. And these tend to be large enough to host cell tower sites as well. Oops, sorry. Okay, next slide. The coverage maps. This was provided by the applicant as part, and it's contained in your packets. It shows the strength of signal over the target area. Red is the strongest, green is average, and blue is the weakest. So if you look on the left map, it shows a lot of weak coverage in the area where the tower is going to be located. And on the right side, and a chunk of the green all turns into red. So there's a very, the applicant staff will go into detail on why this happens and what causes all the delays and lack of service in the area. And it's more than just coverage that plays into that. So let me advance this one more slide. This is the site plan for the overall view of the site. You can see the Mulberry treatment plant, the outdoor aeration pond, which is just north of the site, which is at the very south end of the facility. You can kind of see it highlighted in dark gray. And it will utilize the access road off of Walnut Drive to service the site. I'm going to advance it one more slide. The actual site is a 40 by 40 foot area, and that's the dimensions that are contained in the lease agreement. It'll be an 8-foot CMU block wall that will surround the property, and it will contain all the ground equipment related to the tower operations. And they will put some additional code required landscaping around the perimeter of the wall. Final slide is the tower elevation view of the tower itself. The tower's designed for 3 co-locates, and at the very bottom, the 4th one that you see on there is intended for city emergency communications location. So technically it's 4 co-locates, but one will be for the city use. One will be for the prime tenant. Then there'll be 2 locates, which will add 2 co-locates, which will add into the lease agreement amounts, which I'll get to here in a minute. So I want to go back to, oops, that wasn't smart. I'm going to go back to the overall view here. So what staff did is we looked at the Cisco and the Island treatment plant lease rates when we calculated the lease rate for the area that the 600 square foot enclosed area that they're going to be leasing. And in addition, there's $300. That's what got us to $1,100. And then additionally, there's the $300 per co-locate that's going to be on the tower. So and then there's a 3% increase per annum as well, which is, you can see in the very thick lease agreement. I won't go into detail on that because there's a lot in there. But in general, if all the spots are occupied on the tower, except maybe the city one at the very bottom, that would be approximately $1,700 a month is what the city will be receiving, starting at $1,100 and of course 3% per year increase 25-year lease. So I want to go ahead and end my report here on this, and I'll answer any questions you may have. If I have to, I'll defer to our city attorney on some of the technical aspects of the lease, since I'm not a contract lawyer.
Excellent.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gilbert. So the site where this lease is going to be, it's identified in that lower portion of what we have on the screen now. If I recall, it kind of goes into a valley there? So is that the low end of the property site?
The elevation varies a little bit there. Specifically where the tower is a little bit higher than the surrounding, because you see the aeration pond that's just to the north. That's kind of the low area there. And it rises up toward the towers a little bit, and it comes back down to Walnut.
Okay, gotcha.
The applicant, I believe, has some photos that they're going to show, which kind of show the superimposition of the tower with the background of the treatment facility.
Let's get to the good stuff. Where's the applicant with those photos? Yeah, would the applicant like to? Yeah, welcome.
My name's Linda Grice. I'm with representing TowerCom. I also have an RF engineer here with me, Steve Kennedy. He'll talk about more of the technical aspects. I'm just going to try to zip through some of these to get to the piece he was talking about. Here we go. So this is the low area where the site is. Just to the background is where the aeration pond is. So we're looking north. And this is what the site will look like when there's 4 carriers or telephone companies, including the city, on the site. That's sort of the look of it. What we would like to do is have the RF engineer go through his portion, kind of tell you why this location and how it will, why it needs to be this height. And then if you have questions, we can go back and answer that, or we're just trying to speed it up tonight.
That works.
Sorry for that, but so I'm just going to switch over to him so he can go through his presentation on the longer point.
While we switch over, just real quick on this mock-up of the poles. So there looks like there's 4 tenants, if you will, on here. So as each tenant is brought on, and that's when that shade structure will go around the pole. Otherwise, we would just see the pole.
That would be the intent, yes. Okay. But if the council wanted it, it could be done with all 4. But the intent is to just do one at a time.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so I'll listen to the RF engineer, and we'll go into questions.
Apologies, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Stephen Kennedy. I'm a radio frequency engineer. I'm a consulting engineer to wireless telecom carriers as well as tower companies. I have 34 years engineering experience within the wireless telecom. I'm going to try not to bore you and glaze eyes over. I kind of geek out on this stuff, so I know we're kind of in a rush here, so I'll try to go as fast as I can. So coverage versus capacity. Why do carriers build cell sites? 2 reasons. Coverage. The ability for the transceiver in the phone to talk to the transceiver at the site. Once connection's made, data can transit through the system. In the old days, when I started this business, all you could do on a phone was talk. So there was a whole lot less capacity bandwidth issues because voice takes a lower activity factor. Second reason is capacity. I can explain capacity like this. We have a water pipe in your front yard. You talked about water meters on fire hydrants earlier this evening. So if one person's pulling the water from that fire hydrant, they get 100% of the capacity of that fire hydrant. If two people tap that fire hydrant, you get 50% each. Two more people tap it, they get 25% each. On and on and on and on, and it breaks down. So the more people, the more mobiles that are connecting to the site's network, the less bandwidth or less water per user. Okay, so that's a capacity need. This is a capacity site. It's going to provide greater indoor service, but it's a capacity site. The amount of users in the area have exploded, and even though you're not using your phone, you have apps loaded, all sorts of things happening in the background. You're getting emails, you're getting text. There's always data transitioning the network from the mobile back to the servers on the internet. So this objective is to provide indoor service along commercial areas surrounding suburban areas, as well as coverage along Highway 95, Mulberry Avenue, and Jones Drive. Once again, it's capacity. That's the main reason for this site. You guys are using the phones a lot up here, and so there needs to be more capacity. Why is this important? 96% of Americans own a cell phone, 57% of Americans rely exclusively on cell phones, and 84% of 911 calls are made from wireless devices. Proposed site, we kind of went through that, 100-foot shrouded monopole tower. Why here? The sectors are overloaded. I will show you with crowdsourced data and coverage plots what's going on in the area. But remember, this is a capacity site. There's already coverage in the area reasonably well, but this is going to provide more indoor service and throughput. Okay, so to zoom on the proposed site. Currently in the network, there's the Verizon sites. The closest one is 1.48 miles away. There is another site we're going to be talking about this evening. It's 1.17. I will kind of review that a little bit in this slide, or this deck, but not very much. So we can see there's coverage around, there's sites around the area, but that area is over capacity. So all the sectors on all the red pins around it, they're all overloaded. Okay, so this is a third-party crowdsourced data. So you can see every time you see a little box that's green or red or orange or dark green, that's showing you what Verizon customers are getting within that area. So you can kind of see that coverage is decent along the highway. It's not too bad, but once again, this is a capacity need. We have another third-party crowdsourced data. If you look on the left, that's what all the dot colors mean. If you look at it, so if we go down into the orange, if you have orange or red or dark red, you're not getting a lot of service. If you have yellow or green, you're getting pretty decent service. And I reference a legend in the upper right as well. It's done by RSRP, which is reference signal receive power. This is Verizon Open Signal. More users. If you load Facebook onto your phone, you're probably going to have this app loaded, whether you know it or not. And it's going to be reporting what kind of coverage you have back to the servers on Open Signal's website. So this is the current RSRP coverage. We can see we have, it's not just somebody drawing stuff. This is a mathematical model. So anything that's green to a 95% probability, there will be indoor service. So inside the buildings, there's going to be service to a 95% probability. If we see yellow, it's in vehicle. If we see red, it's on street. So this is the current with the current proposed, or without the proposed site. This is with the proposed site. So what are we doing? We're increasing the indoor service significantly within the area. We're working through trying to add the capacity, and we're providing better indoor service, but we've already got decent coverage service right now. And if we add the proposed site that we'll be talking about later, up to the northeast of the proposed in the blue circle, that's what we're going to see within the area, and it's going to be some good solid coverage with very good throughput per user. This is a best server plot. This is kind of look like somebody threw up on the piece of paper. But basically what this shows us is in the area in the blue circle, there's nobody that's really the dominant server, dominant provider. So each sector is a different color. So what's going on in the area where the proposed is? A lot of who, what's, where's, and when. So the mobiles are trying to decide who am I going to talk to? And it's not consistent. So we're getting a lot of, the mobiles are having to run at higher power and all sorts of other fun things. Now, if we look at the next slide, when the proposed goes on air, all of a sudden, those areas cut off, right? And we have a good, definite, dominant server within every area. This is the proposed dominant server with best server with the other site. I'll go back one. You can look up where the other proposed site is, where the purple and the yellow meet. It's kind of hodgepodge mix, and you add that site, all of a sudden you got good, strong, dominant servers. Next thing to talk about is RF safety. There's always talk about health effects and all those sorts of wonderful things, so I like to just do a quick review. There's two types of electromagnetic energy. There's ionizing and non-ionizing. Ionizing are things that can affect human DNA, things like gamma rays, X-rays. When you go to the dentist, they throw the lead overcoat on you when they take your X-rays. Why is that? Because they want the X-rays in the rest of your body. And that room that you're in is actually a Faraday cage to keep that energy inside. So it's a short transmit, pops you, you get your nice X-ray, checks your teeth, but it's a very small amount and you're protected. That's because photons are passing through your body, and that's the things that can affect DNA. Non-ionizing energy is cell phones, light bulbs, things like that. The only side effect is heat. You ever notice when you're on the cell phone for a long time, 30 minutes, you're just chatting up away and it's getting warm? That's because that amplifier is doing two things. One, it's generating radio frequency energy, and two, it's generating heat. That's the side effect. So the FCC monitors and controls this, and any licensed transmitter within the United States is regulated by the FCC, and they have to follow these rules and regulations. That includes fire, police, any private radio operator that has a license. They have to follow these rules. There's two types of coverage. There's occupational and there's general public. Occupational is there's antennas on a roof. It's a controlled roof. You have to have a key or access by a guard to get to it. Some guy that works on air conditioners climbs up and starts working on the roof. He doesn't understand RF engineering. That's okay. We put all sorts of things that tell him, hey, within this area, you need to be careful of this, this, and that. General public is, I'm walking by a site. I don't even know I'm walking by a site. So the levels have to be so much lower. So the specific absorption rate is the limit that the FCC gave and said, here's what the maximum is. It's 1.7 watts per kilogram squared. The FCC then lowered that by a factor of 10, and that's what occupational is. They lowered it again by a factor of 50, and that's what general public is. So general public, like it is, you don't know what's going on, you're walking right by a site. It's proximity based. This phone next to my ear generates 50% of the general public limit. If I double the distance away from my ear, it reduces by the square. Double the distance, it reduces by the square. It's proximity based. That transmitter about 6 feet above the city manager, that access point, it's proximity based. Looking at the electromagnetics in the non-ionizing energy, the city manager is getting more than the city clerk because the city clerk is farther away from that transmitter. So that's the concept of what's going on. So this phone, 50%. The antennas on that tower, less than 10%. Very small amount. Very, very small amount. So the power levels below a tower are 1/1000th of the power levels at the top of the tower. The power levels around the tower, anything behind the CMU block wall, is typically the occupational area. And then this site will meet all OET 65 FCC requirements, and it will follow the FCC's limits. I mean, these carriers spend billions of dollars on these licenses. That's before they even put equipment on towers. They're not going to mess up with the FCC and do anything wrong to possibly lose that license. There's some references, and I went and looked at AT&T real quick. They're not doing as well as Verizon in the area. And then I looked at T-Mobile, and they're doing a little bit better than AT&T, but I think they'll probably go on the side as well eventually. So this is a capacity site. Crowdsourced data shows that there needs to be some in-building coverage, and all three carriers are probably going to eventually want on this site. Hopefully I didn't glaze your eyes over. And if I stand for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. It's not often we have a radio frequency engineer in front of us, so I'm just going to ask a question that why are cell phones they work good, and then all of a sudden they don't work good?
In the same spot?
No, like as a city, like we have great coverage with one carrier, works great, and then like it seems like just overnight that they just aren't working good anymore. Now it's a different carrier.
Yeah, so it's two different things are going on. One is different frequency bands. There's there's 10 frequency bands: 700 megahertz, 600 megahertz, 850, 1900, 2100. The list goes on and on. The lower the frequency, the better the building penetration is. That's one thing. The second thing, I call it the Thanksgiving principle. So what happens, you and your significant other, you have your wireless Wi-Fi service in your house. You know where you have service in the house. You know what rooms you can go to and have good service and have good streaming and watch your YouTube or watch Netflix or whatever. All these things happen. What happens when everybody comes over for Thanksgiving? Hey, what's your Wi-Fi password? What's your Wi-Fi password? All of a sudden, you got 15 people on the Wi-Fi. What happens in those rooms that you had marginal service, all of a sudden now don't have service? The rooms that had good service now have marginal. And you notice, gee, my email's not going as fast. I'm not surfing the web as fast. That's because we talk about the water principle, right? More users, less bandwidth per user.
That's just technology. So it's all carriers.
That's
the
all
same.
carriers, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and they all have a different amount of subscribers on them. They all have different antenna heights. There's a variety of things that come into play. But if you're having service one day and the next day you're not having service, or you notice at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, if you're close to the highway, your service level decreases because there's a whole lot of people on that highway with you.
Yeah, we had one provider in town, and on holiday weekends, that provider, if you had it, you wouldn't get service because so many visitors were here. That wasn't the case with the other one, so I didn't know that was.
There's differences. You can see people say, well, can't you lower the tower 10 feet, things like that. 10, 15 feet makes a difference to these carriers because, when one site's talking to 800 handhelds or 800 mobile phones, that's a big impact, right? And you spread that out across all the sites and all the users that have phones because, everybody's got a phone now.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah, Vice Mayor Moses, I believe you had a question.
I mean, you kind of answered it, but I understand the capacity that you're referring to, but how does it help building penetration?
So the transmitter above the city manager provides penetration through this room and outside the wall into another area, right? So the signals will move through the walls, right? They'll get attenuated, they'll get lessened, but they'll move through the walls. So coverage is, if you're providing indoor service, it's just a stronger RF level at a closer proximity to where you are. That's all it is.
And then, and I'm glad you brought up the health concerns because that was some concerns of people. And so it's only distance to the device, concentration of RF, different RF frequency signals doesn't matter at all.
So within
Like
the
a concentration site that everything is directed to, and then
so for this site, Verizon will be using 7 different frequency bands with separate amplifiers in each band, and still it's going to be below 10% on the general public limit. There's not enough cumulative. There's not enough to really make an impact in that. Does that answer your question, sir?
it does. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you being here.
Sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, go ahead.
I just had a question that I've noticed and other people have brought up to me is, I don't know if it's a cellular issue, but you're here and you're an expert. So it seems like there's certain areas of town where you hit a certain light or you hit a certain street and I don't know if it's always the cell phone that goes out or it's Bluetooth or it's just your phone goes wonky. And I've noticed there's been a couple places in town that does that. Is that a cellular issue? Is that
That's the laws of physics coming to bite us. If we go back and we look at the first best server site, if you look at where the blue circle is, nobody's dominant. Nobody's the main provider. It's all over the place. So you're going to have intersections where you get up to cell edge from one site to the next, that depending on how the frequencies are using, the amount of users are active in that network at that particular time, they're going to impact if you have coverage at that intersection or you don't.
that'd be a cell phone, like your cell phone. You notice call issues, but it seems like if you have like Bluetooth in your car, it just drops the connection from Bluetooth. But it seems like it's a new thing going in certain parts of town.
So
I'm just curious.
with Bluetooth is a very short distance, right? You got your Bluetooth earpiece, you walk away from your phone 40, 50 feet, all of a sudden it goes off. Well, Bluetooth, if there's enough Bluetooth users in the area and they start walking on each other, because it's a finite limited bandwidth, that can affect how your Bluetooth talks to your phone.
Yeah, it's just like I said, I've had other people notice it too. It's like you get to this intersection and your Bluetooth goes off. The phone you can still put on speaker and talk, but the Bluetooth and like.
there could be an interferer within that area that's close to the Bluetooth band that's causing problems within that area. There's a variety of things that could come in play in that.
I sometimes have trouble connecting to my car. Can you come down with me? And
Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
I'm agreeing with Jim Dolan. I'm so glad, Councilmember Dolan, I'm glad you're here today because the, I've been hearing that these towers are going to take care of that Bluetooth issue. And I've been told that that's not really true either. There's some sort of interference. There's one up at the top of McCulloch over by Cherry Tree. Every time you're driving through, it has been like that for years.
Okay.
Your CarPlay just drops off, and then you got to pick up your phone and you got to get on speaker or something like that. And then then it passes. There's one on McCulloch, which is over on McCulloch and Acoma. There's also one over by the highway that over industrial and the highway, driving down the road, same thing. Hello, somebody's going to get in a wreck because you're more worried about trying to gather your phone to get back onto a speaker when legally we're not supposed to be doing that. How are we going to fix that? Because I was told that as soon as this tower goes in, that goes away. Is that true?
So when this tower goes in, you're going to see a lot better coverage in those areas because you are in a high capacity environment right now. I mean, therethere's 2 sites up to you. Wireless carriers don't build sites for the heck of it. They're not cheap. They're expensive. So there's a need. And right now you guys are over capacity. So you're going to have a whole lot more of those areas where you're driving through an intersection, you're driving a particular part of highway or a particular residential neighborhood, and all of a sudden your quality of service goes out and you get a Bluetooth impact. So these sites are going to help to resolve that issue.
So I can tell my constituents out there that this cell tower is going to help you with this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to clarify to the police chief, I don't touch my phone while I'm driving. Just clarify. Yeah.
Yeah. Councilmember Lane, did you have a question or comment?
I do. Thank you. So it's good that you're here. You're answering a lot of questions. I don't think any of it has to do with the land use agreement, which is what the agenda item is, but it's really good to know because since it's already been approved by planning and zoning, this is the land use. So what I'd want to get out to the people, this land agreement that we're talking about is at the water treatment plant. It is not at Cypress Park, as rumors are going around town that that's where it is. It is not. It's at the wastewater treatment plant. The other is, and I don't know whether you can answer it or one of the others, but having the opportunity by putting this on our land that the city owns, we'll have the opportunity to put city assets on this tower for the 911 system and enhance our capabilities with our police and fire. Is that correct?
Yes, it is a tower company. They are out to put tenants on the tower. So yes, if fire and EMS and police want to put an antenna with a radio on there, they just have to work with the tower company and set it up.
Thank you.
Sir.
Any additional questions or comments from members of council before we open the public hearing? Or Ms. Grease, do you have any more in your presentation? No. Okay, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kelly Lutz here. My question is a continuation what you said about, and he said that we would be a tenant on that tower. So does that mean that the fire department and the police department, in order to use that tower, would pay the company? So we're charging them for the land with a lease agreement, and then we'd have to have a lease agreement to use the tower back. So my question was, what's the ratio there of what we're going to be charged to use that tower versus what we're charging them to use the land? So maybe they can answer that.
Yeah, great question, Mr. Lutz. Mr. Tuneman?
Thank you. The city has the ability to co-locate on this at no cost. So
thank you.
There'll be one carrier, Verizon, 2 additional carriers, and then the city would be the 4th at no additional cost.
Yeah, thank you.
So we can put a Bluetooth extender. I can get you one of those. Perfect. For the fire department, of course.
so you know. I know you don't know, but it's okay. Hey, good evening, Mayor, City Council. I do have a question in regards to the tower. Is how come it's designed with 4 big square panel-y things and not looking like a pine tree or palm tree or a cacti? Because, you know, the design of the tower would be really prettier. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, Mr. Gilbert is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those items were discussed with the applicants as far as how to best make the tower blend in the community. Unfortunately, there's a certain height you reach where different types of looks do not look so great, and we were able to view samples of similar in other communities that looked absolutely atrocious. So what it boiled down to is probably going to go with a non-reflective earth tone color on the tower that's not going to be offensive to anyone, physically offensive to eyeballs or anything like that. But we looked at the palm trees and the cactus. They just don't look right when you have 4 co-locates. It's impossible for it to look like a normal tree. And the additional height with all the trees around it being real palm trees and being half the height just was not a good look. And so we believe we're going to that route to avoid the difficult appearance that would present.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Yeah, we're still in the public hearing. Would anyone else like to address the city council on this item? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Councilmember Campbell, did you have a comment? Yeah, please. Yeah, you can. Okay, excellent. All right, so we are here actually for a lease agreement. We learned a whole lot about cell coverage and radio frequencies and all of the like. It's actually surprising when this item first came before the discussion within the community. Lots of information was out there, and you really don't realize how much of this infrastructure already exists. So when you start looking back at our community, we have the benefit because we're up on a hill. You'll actually see so many of these cell towers or tower type pieces of infrastructure that you don't really realize are there until you actually put a look at it. So I went on top of a hill over in the south neighborhood. Actually, I was with Councilmember Lane, and you can look back into the city, and we saw probably 4 or 5. Even on my walk from this building over back to City Hall, you see a bunch of them as well. So this one is, if we stay with this neutral desert look, you won't even necessarily notice it from afar like you currently notice the other ones from afar. But we are here this evening for a land lease agreement for this particular site. This item, as far as the land use, was already heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission and was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Certainly, they wouldn't have anything to do with the lease agreement, which is what we're discussing tonight. So, are there any questions or comments from members of council, or potentially a motion for this item? Yeah, Councilmember Lane.
I move to approve the cellular tower land lease agreement with TowerCom XI-B LLC and its associated documents for a new cellular communication site to be located at 1867 Walnut Drive.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lane and a second from Councilmember Campbell. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.4 is approved cellular tower land lease agreement with TowerCom XI-B LLC for a new cellular communication site to be located at 2330 McCulloch Boulevard North. Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Or I'm sorry, it's late.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me advance this here. I think I have it on the right slide. I hope. Geez. It didn't translate. All right. Give me a moment. I'll skip through it all. Tried to shortcut it. Okay. This one's very similar to the last presentation. The only difference is this particular tower is located literally right outside our building here. It's on the, uh, you could say the east end of the city hall parking lot next to the dumpster enclosures. So we would be in the building directly south of where the end of that pointer is. Let me advance this one more slide here. Property is zoned mixed use neighborhood plan development. Advance the coverage map. This coverage map was presented earlier for the other tower, and we'll do the same for this one. And the upper diagram, a lot of greens and blues. And again, this came from the applicant. A lot of greens and blues, and then when you, in the very middle of the screen, when you drop the tower in there on the bottom image, it turns to a lot of red, eliminates a lot of the blues in there and a lot of the greens. Let me advance this one more slide. This is the site plan for the tower. It's going to be right at the entrance into the City Hall parking lot that's closest to Acoma. And it's going to be literally right there as you cross the wash, you turn in the parking lot, it's going to be right there next to the dumpster enclosure. So advance it one slide. That's more of a detail. The dumpster enclosure is off to the right, or I'm sorry, to the left of the site. And it's a 40 by 40 with landscaping around part of the site. The Public Works Department has requested that landscaping be restricted close to the wash for their purposes. And then finally, advance it to the tower elevation view. It's the same as for the previous tower. It's slightly lower in height, but it's 4 co-locates, including one at the very bottom for city communications. And that's all I have to present for staff on this. The applicants are here for this, and they will have another presentation for you.
Mr. Gilbert.
We'd like to pass on our presentation and just answer questions if you have questions.
Yeah, thank you. The only in your presentation, do you have the photo of what that looks like? I think that was a helpful photo for me in the last one. If I could just see that, then maybe if any of my colleagues on council have any additional questions. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that is helpful. All right. Are there any questions from members of the council for the applicant or Mr. Gilbert? Okay, again, we're here doing the same thing. The land use went in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. It is coming forward with a recommendation from Planning and Zoning. This has to do with the land lease agreement. The terms of the agreement are similar to what Mr. Gilbert mentioned on the last one. Unless there are any questions, I'll open the public hearing. All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Dolan,
motion.
please.
I move to approve the cellular tower land lease agreement with TowerCom XI-B LLC and its associated documents for a new cellular communication site to be located at 2330 McCulloch Boulevard North.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan, a second from Vice Mayor Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to item 7.7. So as following along, we're going back to where we were before we circled back here. So item 7.7, which is award the professional services agreement for the Kiowa Drain 3 Wash Stabilization Improvement Project design to Kimley Horn and Associates. Mr. Wolf.
Thanks for your patience. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am here tonight for the Kiowa Drain 3 design award of the design contract. Before you, I have an exhibit of the section of Kiowa Drain that's called Reach 3. It's between, to the right, what would be Cactus Wren Drive.
Mr. Wolf, if I may, our screens aren't showing what the screens in the room are showing. Okay, yeah, now we're with you. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Okay, good. So the reach that we're concerned with, and it was a priority on the study that this map came from, is between Cactus Wren Drive and then downstream down the channel to Kiowa Avenue. You'll see some critical red areas where we need to get the channel directed in more of a straight line to hit a multiple box culvert. That's not box, but multiple culvert crossing underneath Kiowa. There's a very large drop structure at this end coming down off of Wren, Cactus Wren. These symbols here along the way are actually the drop structures. Down at the bottom, those are now grade controlled to get everything nice and flat and good smooth flow. We have bank protection really extended further than just what's shown here in red, going further upstream. A little background on it, the wash, based on a wash stabilization study done in 2015, the drain was prioritized as number 8 of the top 10 washes. This Kiowa Drain Reach 3 having a high priority with significant erosion and scour at the time of the study and subsequent analysis. The purpose of the project, downstream of Cactus Wren Drive at grade and then drive at grade crossing, is to construct a more stable channel profile with drop and energy dissipation structures to reduce the scour and erosion from Cactus Wren Drive to Kiowa. Provide grade control and maintenance accessibility, as well as reduce the risk for adjacent property damage. A couple of conditions assessment that's been done recently. This is the drop structure coming down off of Cactus Wren. You'll see that that flow, that as it comes down, it has significant wash and undercurrent and things going on at the actual drop. The project actually starts at this location where we've had undermining of the concrete even on the sidewalls along here. But significant scour and slot cut occurring in the area, wash bank erosion along a meandering segments that doesn't follow the channel, and then a lot of sediment transport into the culvert crossing at Kiowa. Some other projects, I apologize for this. Apologize for the sideways picture. It's not as planned. Turn your head slightly. You'll see a lot of utility pole and then a lot of sediment transport going down channel. Here's another picture on the bottom left where we actually have turns in the channel and perspective. There's a person there in the wash that was with us assessing it. We've got utility anchors and whatnot that we'll also be addressing as we get the design underway. There are some permits that are required, although we have currently a favorable, how do I point this out? The change in the POTUS does change how we can treat the WOTUS. Does that make sense? Okay. So change in presidency at times changes how they determine waters of the U.S. And in this case right now, this section has been determined to be not more non-significant or less permit required. And so we're moving with just an approved jurisdictional determination with the Army Corps, and we still have our cultural resources compliance. ADEQ will have a 401 certification for the wash, and that basically says that we're limited at how much additional sediment are allowed to transport during construction. Quick timeline, what we've outlined is we're getting underway with the preliminary matters, research, survey, and geotech here after award tonight, should you do so. Through June, we'll go through a 30 and 60% plans and specs and estimates from June through August of this year. 100% bid documents are anticipated to be in September, so that near after monsoon season, we're able to get into construction. And that's all I have here for the presentation. I'm open for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Are there any questions from members of the council for Mr. Wolf on this item? Councilmember Lane?
It's not really a question, just something that I wanted to say, and that is a thank you to the city staff. You know, all of the people that own property here in Lake Havasu City pay into their flood control dollars on their property taxes. And those dollars come back to the city for use in flood control. And that's what is funding projects like this, and have been since we did this survey years ago. And you can see the big significance. When we have a very big rain event, we don't have the flooding that we used to have. Roads are not impassable and such as that. So just a comment, and thank you to the city staff for taking those tax dollars that are already being paid to the county, although the county doesn't give them all back to us. That's for another day. But I just appreciate the fact that the money that is being taken and our residents are paying in property taxes are coming back to Lake Havasu, and they're fixing these washes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Koch,
Motion?
please.
I move to award the professional services agreement for the Kiowa Drain 3 wash stabilization improvements project to Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc. in the amount of $155,769.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch and a second from Vice Mayor Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.8 is approve the cooperative purchase agreement with cooperative purchase of video detection systems required from ITRIS Inc. Mr. Foggin.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. It is a pleasure to be here. Mr. Young, who usually presents these things, on vacation, well-deserved, and hope he's enjoying Mexico. So
Yeah, good for him. I was going to invite him or thank him for having us at his council meeting, because the rest of it is, is all him. Yeah.
I know I'd rather be doing that, right? So what we have for you tonight is the signalization system that is provided by ITERIS. I'm not exactly sure the pronunciation, so I'm going to go with yours. And what we're trying to do and ask the council to approve a cooperative purchase agreement with them in an effort to better match up our video detection systems on our street lights, our signal lights. And this new system, our effort will be to replace about 3 of them every year to basically have cohesiveness between all of the signal lights. And so we have kind of a hodgepodge of video systems now. This will basically put them all under one vendor and allow us to have better control of the lights. And so we're asking for your approval on that.
Thank you, Mr. Foggin. Are there any questions from members of the council for Mr. Foggin on this item?
You say control of the lights. Can we have like an app on our phone or?
Well, you can't, but our signal techs, it actually gives them remote access to them. And so if the light's experiencing issues, there's a pretty good chance that they don't have to go physically to the light or to the signal box, that they can try to make those corrections remotely. So it actually does give some remote capabilities that we currently don't have.
Cool.
Yep.
Councilmember Lane.
Thank you. Don't get away, Ron.
I'm
So
running.
currently we have a multitude of different things where we have cameras that look at the intersections. They notice that there's a vehicle there and they change. The
Correct.
other is the loops that we see
Loops,
that are cut
yep.
into the roadways. We're going to transition completely to the cameras.
Yep.
My question is, we have a lot of motorcycle riders in town, and we have some signal lights that you can get it to change on a motorcycle, some that can't. If we have an issue with the motorcycle, the light's not able to change, can we report that and you can adjust that with this new system?
Yeah. So what I'd say is, in the loop system that's in the pavement, it fails to recognize motorcycles, and it can even fail to recognize really small vehicles of any kind. And so the video cameras actually do a much better job of identifying vehicles at the stoplight. And they also do a much better job of being able to allow us to do traffic counts, both right and left turns as well, that we currently do not have capabilities of. So there's actually a lot of pros to these systems that we're not seeing with the loop system. And the other piece to the loop systems are, if there's a need to dig up the asphalt at an intersection, we're not affecting the light system as well. So.
Any other questions from members of the council? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item?
The question is, he discussed, thank you, the motorcycle issues, but we also have bicycle issues, cyclist issues. And then one night I was on Mesquite Avenue trying to turn left onto Lake Havasu Avenue, and that light changed like 10 times for Lake Havasu Avenue while I sat in the left-hand turn lane until I called the police department and asked permission to turn left because, well, I had a passenger in the car with me, and that passenger called the police department so I could turn left. And they told me that as long as it was safe for me to turn left, it was 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. But as long as it was safe for me to turn left, that I could. The light never changed. And I'm in a regular size pickup. So would this system address those kind of issues? Like, so if I could call the police department, would they be able to go, yeah, hey, let's just change the light for you?
Yes, so it would. I mean, this is buying three. It's unifying the technology that we're using so we can expand that across all of our lights. We have 15 of them currently, with one more coming online. And doing 3 a year would ensure that we're using the same technology platform for all of the lights when we make it through. So in 5 years, if we have budget allocations to be able to do that. So it would address that.
Thank you. You said we have 15 city lights?
The city has 15 traffic lights with one on its way.
That's all the ones on the highway also?
No, this is Lake Havasu City. Those are ADOT lights.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember Lane.
I just want to clear one thing that she asked. If she called the police department if they could change the light. No, the dispatchers cannot push a button and change the signal lights.
That's correct.
Would anyone else like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Dolan.
Well, if Ron can guarantee me that these cameras are not going to mess with my CarPlay and Bluetooth, I will then make a motion.
Please.
I guarantee
No, he
it.
didn't. He didn't say it.
Yeah.
He didn't swear to it.
I guarantee it.
Perfect.
The other guy that's smarter than me said so.
All right. I move to approve and authorize the city manager to execute the cooperative purchase agreement with Iteris Incorporated and approve the cooperative purchase of video detection systems.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan, a second from Vice Mayor Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank
Item
you, Mayor.
7.9 is approve the cooperative purchase agreement and cooperative purchase of electrical energy power generation equipment with related parts, supplies, and services from Empire Southwest LLC, DBA Empire Power Systems, Inc. Mr. Foggin.
Mayor, Council, we're looking for a cooperative purchase agreement and also acknowledging that with this vendor, we're going to exceed $50,000. The city has 62 generators that we are responsible for maintaining, repairing, and just general inspection. And so this company does and takes care of all of those generators. So pretty important for emergency power backup. And so we're asking basically for the ability to continue to use this vendor to do the service for us.
Thank you, Mr. Foggin. Are there any questions from members of the council for Mr. Foggin on this item? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor?
Vice Mayor Moses,
Motion.
please.
Move to approve and authorize the city manager to execute the cooperative purchase agreement for electrical energy power generation equipment with related parts, supplies, and service with Empire Southwest LLC, DBA Empire Power Systems, Inc. Approve routine expenditures to exceed $50,000 annually and authorize city staff to exercise the option to renew the agreement for an additional one-year term.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Moses. We have a second from Councilmember Lane. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 7.10, which is approve a cooperative purchase agreement and cooperative purchase of heavy-duty fleet, construction, and agricultural industrial parts, service, and accessories from Freightliner of Arizona LLC, DBA Velocity Truck Centers. Mr. Foggin.
Mayor and Council, we buy all of our parts for all of our big equipment from this vendor, and we're looking for the cooperative purchase agreement and acknowledgement that all of those parts, a little bit over time, add up to a whole bunch. And so that would be the what is being requested as the spend of over $50,000. And so that's really all I have on that item. Is that this is just parts that are used every single day on all of our large vehicles. I guess I should put in also those parts, a lot of them go on fire trucks. I'm told that that fire department does well, so I'll throw that in there.
Just say the word. Yeah. Yeah, very nice. Are there any questions from members of the council for Mr. Foggin on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Lynn?
so we got the report that tells about the replacement on it, the two vehicles in parks. So I understand how the replacement thing works, but on both of them, it says no major issues on both of these vehicles at this time.
Counselor, you're one ahead of us.
Sorry.
You're all good.
Yeah, that'll be our next item. Yeah. Are there any questions for Mr. Foggin before we open the public hearing on the item in front of us? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor?
Councilmember Lane?
I'll make a motion, but I'll also make a comment that these are all budgeted items for the public. These are budgeted items, but once we hit that threshold, it has to come back to council for additional action. But we were expecting this from day one when we approved the budget last year. So with that, I move to approve and authorize the city manager to execute the cooperative purchase agreement for heavy-duty fleet, construction, and agricultural industrial parts service and accessories from Freightliner of Arizona, LLC, DBA Velocity Truck Centers, approve routine expenditures to exceed $50,000 annually, and authorize city staff to exercise the option to renew the agreement for one additional one-year term.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lane, a second from Vice Mayor Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.11 is approve the cooperative purchase of two 2024 Ford F-250 regular cab 4x2 and one 2024 Ford F-250 regular cab 4x4 from Santan Auto Partners, LLC. Mr. Foggin.
Mayor and Council, so we have three vehicles before you for replacement. These vehicles are all 2005 vehicles. The city team has set up a value system that they judge based on age, use, cost to repair, and all three of these vehicles, I believe the number is 32. The point system for that is 32. All three of these vehicles exceed that by quite a bit. And so in an effort to answer, I think, a question that was coming, so I'm not, you just have to watch the other part of it to know what the question is. But what I would say is the goal on when you're controlling a fleet, it's an interesting balance that you're trying to strike with not spending all your dollars on vehicles, and at the same time not keeping those vehicles till something that I refer to as being nickeled and dimed to death by those vehicles. And so there's always looking for that sweet spot. I think that's where that 32-point system comes in, where you still have value in the vehicle for resale, so you can put it towards new vehicles and not have that vehicle really eat you alive with maintenance over time. And I think that's what you're seeing in the paper that was provided by Mr. Young and the fleet services team. And that's always going to be our goal, is to give the city the best resale value of used vehicles so that we can continue to replace and have good vehicles in place and not have to replace motors and transmissions, those things that cost maybe probably more than the vehicle's actually worth. So that's what I would say to your question. So.
Thank you, Mr. Foggin. Are there any questions from members of the council for Mr. Foggin on this item? Yeah, Councilmember Lane.
Thank you. And I just want to make another comment, and this kind of relates to a comment that a citizen made after our last council meeting in buying vehicles. It takes tools to do jobs. And when I look at the vehicles that we've been replacing, I mean, these are 19-year-old vehicles. And when you look at the mileage, you may think that the mileage is low, but our vehicles also have a lot of idle hours on them. Here, because they have to stay running because of emergency lights and radios and whatever else is in the vehicle. So it's not just mileage, but idle hours. And to have a vehicle that is 19, 20, we had one last time that was almost 30 years old. It shows that our city staff is using our vehicles wisely and that they're taking care of the equipment that they have. But eventually those vehicles have to be replaced. These are budgeted items as well, as I spoke about in the last item that we had. We budget for so many vehicles per year so that we're not replacing all the vehicles at the same time. And so we have to supply the city staff with the tools that they need to do the job. And part of that is the vehicles and replacing vehicles. It would be nice if we could just do all of these at the same time instead of 2 or 3 every single council meeting.
We're working on that.
So, yeah, I appreciate the fact that the city staff can push vehicles for 20 to 30 years before we have to replace them.
Yeah. And just, again, I would reiterate that that sweet spot where you use the vehicle to its useful life and still have resale value to put it towards a replacement that's the sweet spot that you're always looking for. And my guess would be that 2005s are not going to reap the auction value that we would like to put towards the replacements.
Are there any additional questions or comments before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor.
Vice Mayor Moses,
Yeah, motion.
please.
Move to approve the cooperative purchase of two 2024 Ford F-250 regular cab 4x2 vehicles and one 2024 Ford F-250 regular cab 4x4, the amount of $143,548.28 from Santan Auto Partners LLC, subject to release of any amended manufacturer's official published pricing and discount off of the manufacturer's retail price by the Arizona State Purchasing Office, and authorize the city manager to approve an amended adjustment.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Moses and a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. Our final public hearing of the evening is item 7.12, approve change order number 1 to the job order contract, task order proposal number 1 for the fiscal year 2023-24 chip seal program with Cactus Asphalt, and approve raising the per project limit for the JOC task order number 1 to $1.2 million. Mr. Foggen.
Mayor and council, in your February meeting, you approved a JOC to Cactus for $999,000 and some change. The JOC process allows that to up to $1 million to just be approved as we did it. If we go over $1 million, JOC is still in place, but it requires council approval to go over that amount. And so what we have for you is we have a budget to do chip seal that we can do 1.2 million. We have projects that add up to 999,000. So we'd like to add 3 additional roads to our chip seal. And that takes us to that number, just under $1.2 million that we're asking you to approve the use of the JOC for. And it's just pretty much that simple, is we're going to do extra chip seal in this round.
Thank you. So the council already approved the $999,000
Correct.
JOC, and now this is asking for that additional capacity to go to 1.2.
Right.
Which was also already approved in our budgeting process.
Correct. As Vice Mayor Moses mentioned, it was already approved through the budget, but now the action is to increase that capacity for the JOC. Yeah, Councilmember Campbell?
Was there multiple bidders on this project?
So the wonderful thing about a JOC is you're able to call those that are on the JOC and ask them what their price is and their availability. And so Cactus is one of the JOC contractors, and they're the ones that said they would do it at the price that they said or they'd advertised. And so, yes, there are, but there was only one that wanted to do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions or comments from members of the council? Councilmember Dolan?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to voice it just so we keep an eye on it as a city. I nobody likes chip seal, but it is definitely the best product that works and extends the life of the roads. What bothers me is sometimes the contractors can get sloppy, where they'll put a road, they'll do one and they'll oil it and they'll put rocks on it and they'll do the same thing and they'll overlap them, and you create like these little mini speed bumps on our roads. And we do try to spend a lot of money on our roads to make them as good as we can, and it's sometimes very frustrating when I see that, because to me it's something that I'm hoping we're keeping an eye on, and if we do see that, we're having them fix those, because they're just layering them and it's making the roads bumpy and it's creating issues for later. So if we can just
Yeah, we will absolutely monitor it. The problem with chip seal is it's not an exact science. It does require overlap to make sure that you don't have a gap in
sometimes
that.
they overlap them right where your tire is. It's just kind of
Yeah.
lap it where.
Clearly, it should be in the center lane or the center of the street where you don't typically drive. So, inspection wise, we will definitely keep an eye on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item?
Yeah, Morgan Braden. I just have one question. Is there any way to guarantee or have these people doing this make sure it's done properly? The only reason why I'm asking this is I drive up Daytona off Acoma every day to go home. And there's a section up there after the last few rains where the chip seal has just disintegrated. I got to give the city credit. They come in and they fix it appropriately right away, but it continues in that one section. It just continues deteriorating all the time. Is there some sort of a guarantee from this company that's doing it that they have to take care of that? I have a funny feeling it wasn't done properly in that one section because they did a large section of that road when they did it, but it's only that one little section that has the problem. Is there any kind of a guarantee from the company doing it that it's being done right, or can they be held accountable for the amount of repairs the city's having to do to that one small, and it's only about a block long, that this problem is?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, Mr. Foggen. Maybe you can address the quality measures.
Yeah, so there is guarantee of craftsmanship, quality of the product when it goes down. If they have a spray nozzle that goes bad and that shows up in the year warranty period, they come back and fix it. I would say that most of the time when we see a failure on a chip seal in a block is generally it's the base underneath the product that is not holding it in place. And that's probably a pretty good indication that we need to do something different than a chip seal going forward to make that road better. Because I mean, when I drive on a chip sealed road every single day, a couple times a day, and there was a couple nozzles that weren't working, and you can see the grooves in the road. And I happen to know that the chip seal company that put that down is coming back to fix it. But when you've got major failure in a block, that's generally an indication that your base isn't holding the chip seal in place, and that you've got to do some other kind of application. Probably more than likely, it's going to call for a mill and fill to save that. So,
thank you. Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
As a blader, first off, we know that most of our streets did not get base. It's a strong dirt. It was solid. The engineers at the time thought they were doing right by the citizens and saving us money during the sewers project. So most of you may not know that. You do know that now, that we just laid out asphalt over the top. When I went to my in-house expert and asked him if the dirt is strong enough, is this a problem? He said the problem lies when you're a blader. You're blading across, you have a big blade and you're blading the top. We're a very rocky city, so you're pulling up rocks. You don't have one person picking up rock and throwing. Yep. So be it that our grade was very strong, we may have a very rocky area, Mr. Braden, in that area, and no matter what you do to it, it is just not going to be okay. And the problem with that now is you can't just base one portion of it. Mr. Froggen has some work to do, there's no doubt. Of course, when we do mill over the top of something like that, it does improve the integrity and almost kind of makes a layer for us before we put the asphalt on top of it. There's a little bit of expertise for you on the blading and what we did. So thank you much.
Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for any discussion or motion.
Sure.
Vice Mayor Moses.
Motion.
Please.
I move to approve raising the per project task order limit for JOC task order proposal number 1 to $1.2 million and approve change order number 1 to the JOC task order proposal number 1 for fiscal year 23-24 chip seal program with Cactus Asphalt in an amount not to exceed $1,180,260.15 in total expenditures.
Second. Oh.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Moses, a second from Councilmember Campbell. Is there any additional discussion? All right, seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, item 8 on our agenda is the call to the public. This is where citizens have the opportunity to address the city council on items within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes. There is a indicator box on the screens that will have a countdown for the 3 minutes. It's a countdown plus color coded. We'll be experiencing it ourselves. It starts green. And during the call to the public, the council doesn't have the ability to have a two-way conversation. We can listen intently to any comments that you may have. We can respond to criticism, but we don't really have the ability, because it's not on the agenda, to do anything other than listen. So you don't have to sign up, and we didn't have anyone sign up, but anyone that would like to address the city council during call to the public, please make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Pam Swenson, and I've been coming to a number of meetings since the fall. And one thing that I've noticed a lot is that a lot of your vehicles are purchased from Santan Auto in Gilbert. And I want to know why. Why is it a company in Gilbert? Are you under contract with them? Is it a state requirement? Or have there been other dealers pursued for bids on items? Do you shop around, or you just go to one place? And I know that there's, for specialty items, such as some of the service vehicles and things like that, you're limited to where you can go to purchase items. But for regular trucks and SUVs and things like that, why? Why is it only Santam? And as a taxpayer, I have to shop around for my things. I want to know why the city only goes one place. So that's my question with that. And it's been plaguing me for months now. So now I'm asking. And I noticed you bought more from them tonight. Then the other thing I want to say is that I concur with Councilwoman Lynn when she stated at the last meeting that she had concerns over a administrative services vehicle being put on the agenda with items that were going to be used by Public Works, it was different kind of vehicle. It's apples and oranges. There were two different kinds of vehicles. And I don't think they should have been lumped together like that, especially since the SUV that is in question was previously presented as a separate agenda item, and it had to be presented second again because the item wasn't available. And so it was lumped in with other purchases. And I think because it was identified individually initially, it should have been identified again individually and not lumped in with other vehicles. So I have a concern with that. It's like what the federal government does. They put their pork in with their meat. And then if people don't vote on it because they don't like the pork, then they're made to look bad. So I just think that going forward, it would be appropriate to put similar items as an agenda item and not lump them together. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the city council during call to the public?
Tim Murray again. My compliments to all of you and everyone who was involved in this building. There was a lot of arguments that took place. You all sat here and listened to a variety of different opinions of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. But if you look at it today, this is a great facility. It's going to last this community for a long time. And I'd like to cheer us too. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the city council during call to the public? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the call to the public. Moving on to item 9, which is our current events. Are there any council committee reports?
Mayor?
Councilmember Campbell?
I just wanted to bring up first our MPO meeting today, executive session, where McCulloch and Jamaica is going to be going out to we are getting a stoplight. Yes, we are getting a stoplight on McCulloch and Jamaica, finally. And we're excited to say that it is going out for advertisement next week, I believe. So hopefully you're going to see a lot more work around there, and we're going to get that light in there for everybody, which is really positive. The other on the chamber news, we're having our first home show Many of you may not know this, but the chamber has went slightly in a different direction where they are, for instance, going after starting like what we had CREBA, Colorado River Building Association. They will be taking on that entity and kind of specializing in certain departments and through membership. And this will be their first home show. So go down and support them this Saturday at the Riviera. I'm sorry, I don't know what time it starts, but it's only one day only this time. 55 vendors, I believe. It's going to be a great event at the Riviera. Go down and support the Chamber's first annual home show. And that'll be it.
Thank you. Are there any other council committee reports? All right, item 10 is our future meetings. Our next meeting is actually on Thursday at 9 a.m. There will be a budget CIP overview work session. That's Thursday, April 11th, 2024, 9 a.m. On Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m., we'll have a regular meeting. And then on Thursday, May 9th, 2024 at 9 a.m., we'll have a budget and CIP work session again. Item 11, are there any future discussion items? Item 12, entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, we're adjourned. Be kind. We'll see you next time.